This conference will now be recorded.
The time being 5:13, I'd like to call the October 8th, 2020 meeting of the Tilton Select Board to order. Before we get started, if you're participating by phone or the GoToMeeting platform, please mute your microphone during the meeting. Otherwise, background noise will interfere with the meeting. The Select Board is meeting at Town Hall and providing access via GoToMeeting and conference call to enable the public to observe and listen contemporaneously to the meeting. Additionally, there's an opportunity for the public to attend the meeting in person. However, in order to maintain social distancing, only 8 spaces are available and attendance is on a first-come, first-served basis. Once the maximum limit has been reached, anyone wishing to participate in the meeting must do so remotely. If anyone has a problem with remote access to the meeting, please email web@tiltonnh.org, which will be monitored during the course of the meeting. My goodness. Could you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. The first thing is we're going to review the minutes of October 1st. Are there any comments, corrections?
Jeannie, page 2. Second paragraph, last line, Fogg noted the sewer commission has time, not had. Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any other additions or corrections? Hearing none, I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of October 1st as corrected. Is there a second? Second. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. The next thing is to accept the Land and Community Heritage Investment Program grant award for $9,675, which represents a partial payment for the Tilton Town Hall Planning Study. Is there a motion? I'll make the motion. I make a motion to accept the LCHIP grant, Land and Community Heritage Investment Program, in the amount of $9,675. Is there a second?
Fogg, second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Jeannie, would you give like a synopsis for the for posterity?
Sure. So, Selectmen, if you recall, have given me the authorization to write a grant to the Land and Community Heritage Investment Program for a town hall assessment planning study. As you know, this building's 104 years old, and I don't believe it's ever been looked at. It started with a concern about the repointing of the building, that there was problems on this side of the building, on the right side of the building, as you're facing from the street. And as we looked at that, decided that perhaps we should write a grant, see if we get some funding to look at the whole building. It would make sense to do that since it's never been looked at. So we wrote the grant, we got the funding. I did negotiate down, was able to get the price a little lower than what it had been previously. The money has been, as you see, has been given to us by LCHIP. The architect is ready to go. We're just waiting to find a date.
Thank you very much. Very informative. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is the acceptance of the Emergency Management Performance Grant Award in the amount of dollar signs. How much is the amount?
You don't have that on
I don't have it on my
there.
cheat
There's a
sheet.
page attached to the back.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is.
Um,
The L-chip grant is there.
then that's,
Here we go. 250, no, that's a separate issue.
it says at the top, the MPG grant,
Okay.
find it?
In the amount of $79,931 for the town's emergency operations center at the new police station. Is there a second?
Fogg, second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Jeannie, would you give a brief overview of this?
Sure, the funds will be used to purchase a generator from ASNE and exterior surveillance equipment from Mango Security. We received notice that the town was awarded the grant and may proceed with the transactions, including ordering and paying for the equipment and submitting for reimbursement. These monies are federal emergency management funds administered by the state of New Hampshire and will benefit the town of Tilton in the new police station. And if I could get a motion to formally recognize the grant was awarded to the town and acknowledge that we will be conducting the necessary transactions to complete the grant process and receive reimbursement of these funds, that would be great.
You want to amend the original?
I already have one motion on the floor.
Then that's good enough for me.
Okay. Is there any other discussion? Okay, then, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And I would like to gratefully make a motion to accept the donation from Chuck and Lisa Drew for the Tilton Senior Center bus transportation. Is there a second?
Fogg, second.
We have a motion and a second. Thank you, Chuck and Lisa Drew, for everything you do and for this money, sir. Is there any other discussion?
Did you give the total?
$250.
Thank you.
Hearing no other discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Okay, now we're at the bid opening for the sale of the police station. This is to select a realtor, correct? Correct.
Mr. Chairman, we received one bid. I gave to all of you in your packets, you have a copy of the RFP, just so you can see what we had laid out for it. We did only give one bid package. So I thought, I assume you're all gonna wanna look at this, that you can open the bid and then I'll ask Tim to come up and go over, his presentation with you while I make copies. If that's acceptable.
Without objection, as he is.
I will.
Nice envelope. Yeah, it really is a nice envelope. It doesn't want to come apart. But I can fix that.
Get 911 on hold.
Or so I say. This is really a
You
good
may
bag.
need your jacket as a tourniquet.
I was just thinking that. I got a belt on too.
Oh,
so-
there you go.
No, it's lined.
One piece of paper.
Yeah. Okay, it's multiple folders, so I have to assume
Save you some work.
it is.
Thank
There
you,
you
sir.
go. If you could get a hold of Tim.
Thank you.
So while you're passing those out, I thought it could be an overview. We placed ads in the newspaper, the Laconia Daily Sun and the West Farm. I probably posted it on the bulletin board. Oh, thank you. The kiosk and the website soliciting bids from real estate companies for the sale of the current police department. The RFP was also available on our website. We also contacted 5 real estate companies per the board's request and asked them to submit an RFP. Those real estate agents included Elm Grove, Michael Gaddy, Coverly, Commercial, and Proxy. The deadline was at 4 o'clock today, and as you know, we received 1 bid. So,
How ridiculous is that? I gave you my copy. I gave you all a copy. Thank you very much. So I should read this letter into the record, is that correct? The letter's dated from Home Smart First Choice in Realty, dated October 2nd of this year, to the town of Tilton, to whom it may concern. First and foremost, thank you for the opportunity to prepare a proposal on behalf of Home Smart First Choice Realty. We're excited to be positioned here on the main street of Tilton. It is exciting to think that we may have the opportunity to work with the town of Tilton again on the sale of a town-owned property. In February of 2013, I successfully closed 61 Business Park Drive for $950,000, which was also a town-owned property. Being chosen to orchestrate the sale of 179 East Main Street would be an honor. Having been in the business almost 19 years, I have successfully closed on several commercial properties within our community. Some of the most noteworthy transactions are the Dairy Queen here in Tilton, the home of JJ's Pizza in Franklin, the home of Sealite USA in Tilton, the home of Big Cat Coffees in Franklin, the home of Kettlehead Brewing Company in Tilton, and many more. I am a well-versed agent with experience in all sectors within the real estate industry. One of the things that sets us apart from other local agents is our alignment with the Commercial Investment Board of Realtors. We are dedicated when it comes to providing an optimal client experience, whether it is in the residential or commercial real estate market. Please don't hesitate to contact me directly in the event that you have any questions regarding the proposal. Stop by the new office on Main Street, and he'd love to give us a tour. And I'm sure all of you at home could get the tour too. Okay,
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the proposal from Home Smart Mike Gagney, 293 Main Street in Tilton, Mike Gagney and Associates, and allow them to go ahead and sell our old police station.
6% commission.
Yes.
I'll second that.
we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion amongst the select? John?
Yes, could read into the record the proposal and what it is.
He preferred the other page, John.
But
The
Is it minutes?
the crux of the minute,
You want it?
Here, right here,
I
John.
got it.
You got
This
it?
one? Yeah.
there's only 5 lines
Oh, yeah. Okay.
of 4 topics.
The proposal is for a listing price with a minimum bid of $350,000. Comprehensive market valuation to be completed prior to list to verify market conditions. Listing term is 6 months, start and end date to be determined by the town of Tilton. Listing commission 6%, commission based on net sales price, split between the listing and selling broker. Market activities, multiple listing services. And in parentheses are the letters NNERREN, which is commercial listing. Exposure to all agents within the state of New Hampshire. Okay, he's gonna advertise it through the commercial investment board of realtors, and put it on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. That is his proposal for 6%. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Tim, do you have anything to add to this conversation?
No, I do not.
Thank you very much. We have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Too many papers.
Chairman, can we revisit that vote? I didn't hear everyone, I didn't hear the ayes and the nays.
Okay, we had a motion to accept the bid from Mike Gagne. We had a motion and a second. Roll call vote.
Aye.
Fogg, yes.
I'm a yes.
Potter, yes.
Scanlon, yes.
Thank you.
There you go. Okay,
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
I don't know if this would be out of order at this time, but I want to bring up the minutes of September 24th, just for an addition, just briefly, it was to add my name to volunteering for preamble. I'd like to bring those to discussion now. It's okay.
Okay.
So I'd like to make a motion to bring the minutes of September 24th to the table for discussion.
Is there a second?
Okay.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
What was he adding? I didn't.
And I'd like to make a motion to add on page 4, it says that Jeannie brought, screen just shut down. For preambling, remind that had to be done, and Joe
Okay, yeah.
and Peter were going to schedule it,
Yes,
but to add my name into it, that I had volunteered to
Okay.
assist to.
yes.
I wasn't here on there, so that would be my motions to add my name to
So it was the September what
24th.
minutes? Did you
Minutes.
add your name to the preambulation?
Yeah,
Okay.
page 4.
Okay, so we have a motion to amend the minutes of September 24th. Is there a second?
Fogg, second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Next up on the agenda is the Finance IT Director, Tim Pearson, concerning fiber communications at the new police station.
Fiber communications.
It's not.
Boozled.
Let the record show.
Bamboozling?
Bamboozled. Yes.
I do not.
What are we doing?
This is,
Like current expenditures.
Not fiber.
there are some times when weeks proceed beautifully, schedules work nicely, the work gets done as planned with few bumps in the road. This was not one of those weeks. I'm talking about today. So
The floor is yours. Do as
today,
you
but
will.
I do not have a report for you. I'm still waiting, as I was last week, on some information. And so I really need to get this tied up, so I'll try to make sure that our vendor gets that to us for next week. I can give you an update. I have worked with our telephone vendor, the engineer from one of the fiber companies, and also the sales rep, looking at the configuration and making sure that what we intend to do and how we intend to configure it will actually work. So that's reassuring from that standpoint. The money is pretty much the same as what you saw before, even though some things were added to it. And but where there are some differences, and this is one of the things that it's all related, I guess, in terms of the new building. I wanted to get some direction from the board in terms of telephones. So, for instance, the chief and I went through the original plan for data, phone ports, and HDMI locations. So HDMI would indicate, even though we're using an Ethernet cable to accomplish this with balance at either end, but it indicates where a television would be, or some sort of monitor on a wall, so that they have access to surveillance or presentations, other things. So originally, I had a plan that was developed back in the October timeframe of last year for these port locations and the number of ports, and we were in the 80s, the total number of ports. So going through the building with the chief this last Friday, and then doing a walkthrough, that number went up considerably. And part of the reason was when you actually get in the building and you see all of the walls and offices, and you're thinking about if you're ever going to add ports where, down the road, at some point in time, you may need to have a desk here, you may need to have a monitor there, that sort of thing. So that added some, which are going to be covered within Milestone's contingency. So it's not an extraordinary expense, but the chief had identified 24 locations for monitors on the walls. So the supervisor would need to have a monitor.
Are we going to get monitors on the wall? Or are we just doing HDMI cables and another time getting monitors?
That's exactly right. So we're not gonna have 24 monitors day one. And he's committed to getting donations from various companies for monitors. But it's that kind of thing that just sort of grows as you actually get down and you look at the building and you see the locations, and you're looking at each and every wall. One of the items that is this is one of these that again with phones. So bringing over our existing handsets will not cover the entire building. And a lot of these locations in the building are individual rooms or offices. So where we did not have a phone in the men's or women's locker room before, we didn't have one in the archive room. We were really trying to keep it low and pared down. So this added about 20 additional phones to the plan.
At $100 a piece.
Well, they vary. So some don't need to be a full featured phone, and some need to be. So there's a mixture, but essentially using what we have now and adding to it is about a $4,400 increase, which some of that is already covered because we had it in the plan for the exterior phones and some of the other phones. But my point is that some of these are newer version phones. So if we were to go to all new version phones so that all the PD was using, at least in the higher end handsets, all the same type, that's an additional $2,800. I don't necessarily see the purpose for doing that, but I wanted to make you aware that these are some of the things that we're looking at and some of the decisions that have to be made. And if we can make do with what we have, my feeling is that we should do so.
But do we really need them in a fitness room? Do we really need them in a locker room? they've lived with how many years without having a phone in a locker room?
According to the chief, they do, because there's a concern that the radios aren't going to be able to work inside the building. Well,
Got that now?
the portables. So
Say what?
well, the portable radios, so with the tower in the location that it is, the way it was described to me by the communication guys, there's almost like a donut hole effect. So there's an area by which you sort of have I don't want to call it a blackout area, but an area that's going to be more difficult to get radio communications. And it happens to be right in sort of a cone area, and this was something that was discussed. I think it was even discussed at the police building committee at one point, that not only because of that, but also because of the construction of the building, radio communications inside the building couldn't necessarily be relied on, so radio to radio. So, and we don't use that today primarily. I mean, they use the phones for intercoms and paging and that sort of thing. It just depends. If someone's outside the building, it should work fine. Inside the building, it's thought that there may, that we should have a plan B, or go with our plan B. So, in any event, these phones are the same kind of phones that we would use here in town hall as part of that whole presentation that I made before, where the reduction in cost of communications at town hall will help offset the cost of fiber at the police department. So I hope to have some solid numbers for you next week. I just want to give you an update. The most important thing in my mind so far is that really talking with the engineers and making sure that we've got a sound design and that the implementation will be successful. That's what I'm most concerned with.
I have a question. Do you have any mystery phones in your inventory? You squirrel things away sometimes.
I wish. I don't have any of these,
Okay.
but I can tell you that our phone company has stood by their product. They are also, as part of this this upgrade, and we still have to negotiate with them, but they're intending to replace the two smaller servers that we have as a primary and a backup with a full rack server for no additional charge, along with backup. And that's what would be running not only in the police department, but also town hall eventually as we phase this in. And that all the configuration and buttons and all this stuff is configurable, and it can all be done through the cloud. So that makes it a lot easier for, say, me doing any kind of change to a system like that.
You can do it
or
from
for
your
them as
desk,
well.
right?
From
You could do it from your desk, or you still have to go.
my new desk.
Oh, you have it. Do you have an office?
Actually, I don't. I thought I was going to be able to fit a desk in the communications room, but the way the cabling and there's a ladder rack on the ceiling, and the way that works, it's not going to be.
Seems like you should have a place to keep your stuff somehow.
Well, and Jeannie and I have talked that in the beginning of the implementation, and probably in the first week, I'll probably be over there the whole first week, and then probably spend maybe half days over there for the next 2 weeks or something like that, sort of phase out as they get through the bumps.
Have you a target date?
Excuse me?
A target date,
We don't have a target date for moving these yet.
John?
We on the radio still?
Sure.
Yeah, so $2,800 to add additional phones, and because the radio to radio communications may not work.
Well, it's not just because of that. So it's really, the $4,400 is for all the additional phones and configuration. The $2,800 is to make all the phones the same. So
Okay,
that would make them all brand new phones. So it'd be $6,000 or $7,200, I guess,
so
if we were to go that route.
$4,400 so we can add the additional phones because the radios won't work radio to radio in the building.
Well, and
That's
not
tremendous.
just because of that, but also because it was deemed that in more of these locations, we needed more phones than what we originally thought. So, and going through it with the chief, I pushed back quite a bit on some, I questioned some, but the final analysis, when I looked at it, I thought, well, I probably was too light in thinking that we could get by with fewer phones. And particularly if you walk through the building and you see the size of these rooms and how far they are from other locations, they're not going to hear phones in other rooms in a lot of these.
I guess what I'm getting at is I use radios all the time to communicate through very large buildings, Tilton School, in between buildings, brick walls that are a couple of feet thick from basements to attics. Very low grade DeWalt dog phones. Never had a problem. Never. And to think that our police radios wouldn't work in the same building because of conditions that are much lighter than what I've ever been through. So I don't really buy that. If they'd like to have phones, out of convenience, but I really don't believe that.
Yeah, that's one thing. Well, the way it was explained to us was because of the location of the tower and the broadcast from the tower, that donut hole kind of configuration. I just don't know.
Anybody in the parking lot, any police cruisers in the parking lot can't receive.
No, anything outside should. It was said that the inside within that area would have difficulty.
Would it be possible to wire for the phones, because wire's cheap, put them in there, and then determine if they're needed in some of these areas, and save some money?
And that's, yeah.
And just like you said with the monitors, it's very inexpensive compared to retrofitting.
Exactly.
You're going to be running the wires and the guys are right.
And that's what we did. So in the plan that we worked up with all the data and phone, we made sure that there was data and phone ports, throughout, and in the locations that he wanted. I still got to go through the phone plan. We will be wanting to have more phones than originally planned, and that may have been my fault for thinking that we could get by with just what we had. But at the time we were trying to do everything as inexpensively as possible and just bring over what we needed. The reality is, and I'll give you an example, like our firewalls, we're going to have to, we would have to replace these firewalls anyway. And it makes sense that when we go to fiber, that we would be replacing these and put a new firewall in over at the PD, and then eventually put a new firewall in here. They do, we use sonic wall firewalls, and there is a useful lifespan on these, and they're really critical for protecting our data and protecting all of the CGIS assets there and the motor vehicle assets here. So things of that sort. Those will have to be done. The phones, there's going to be, I'm sure there's going to be other additional expenses along those lines. But these are some of the things that I had talked about before that we're just going to have to be prepared to look at and evaluate. But you're absolutely right. We can, with the wiring in place, I would like to have a sufficient number of phones in place. So I would anticipate coming and wanting to purchase some of these and look at the configuration. But once I have all that other information, I think that'd probably be the time to do that. But in some of these locations too, we may just decide that no, they're good for now, and we can always throw a phone in there later on. Once it's cabled.
My concern is that we're starting to really do a lot of extra spending and to try and keep things reasonable. Maybe there's some things that we could add on at a future time or date.
Well, and some of these we do have budgeted in the original budget. It's just the configurations are a little different, so we're not doing exactly what we were thinking before, so it's a little bit different. So in some cases, we've saved money. In some cases, we're spending a little more money, but I'll be sure to bring all that to the board so that that everyone can weigh in. I can tell you, and of course you'll have direct experience with this. And I told the chief with 24, if he had all 24 TVs in place doing monitoring of the surveillance cameras throughout the town, we'd have a lot of problems because that's going to tie up resources like you can't believe on the video servers, the network video servers. So I talked to him about doing some sort of simulcast where he can define a view, and that one view could be put out to say 4 or 5. So out of the server, it's only looking at one sort of projection, if you will, or one screen. But then there are these devices that'll take that one and send it out to 4 or 5 different TVs.
We're talking about cameras all over town. He's going to start surveilling.
No, so they have today. They have cameras at our other locations. They are able to see those cameras and
I understand where those are, but
it doesn't necessarily mean they have to be
Inside the
Yeah. Inside the. I'm sorry, inside the
inside
building.
the office.
that this was around town.
So
Wait a minute.
They want to sit in their rooms and watch it.
well, and that is one of the nice things about the system that the board has chosen is that you're able to take and mix and match any of these cameras on one screen. So you can have a camera from the senior center, 4 from the PD,
Just like the
2
Zoom.
from Riverfront.
Right.
Right, exactly,
The
right.
cameras come up and you click on one and it'll come to the
Exactly.
front.
That's exactly right.
Okay, so we don't need all of those different monitors.
Well, you do because he would like them in, there are critical areas to have them, say in the supervisor's office, the chief's office, captain, watch commanders. They were already planned for in dispatch, but then you also need them in the squad room, and then there are a number of other rooms.
They've lived without
Yeah,
them for years and years and years and years without no squad room, no captain, no lieutenant, no command, no supervisors. They didn't have them. They didn't watch these. It was dispatch. Why all of a sudden? Because they have a new PD that they have to have them in every room.
Well, I think some of this is the benefit of the building is that it's nice and big and they have all the space they need. The downside is that today, I mean, they can walk just a few feet and take a look at the monitor. There's a big TV in the squad room that monitors the police cameras. And then in dispatch, they have monitors that have both the police and other select cameras. So
If you start adding all of this up, it's like we presented a bill to the taxpayers, and it was, X amount of dollars, and then now all of a sudden you're gonna have monitors in every room so that this person can watch and that person can watch and this person can watch, and it's overkill. It's way overkill. And then you're gonna have cameras, and then you're gonna have phones, and the phones you need because some of the radios don't work. And then there's gonna be another subject coming up. And then it's gonna be the use of computers, laptops versus stations, and,
you're getting ahead.
yeah, and then that's gonna add up, and then and so you say, okay, we save a little money in a contingency here, but then we spend a lot of money in the contingency over here. And then, so are we gonna give back a little bit to the people? We don't just say all of a sudden at the end of the year, well,
No, we're still on track to have a healthy return from our contingency, and we're also expecting, although we don't have the numbers yet, but we are anticipating that we should see a similar kind of return from the milestone contingency. So, to allay your fears a little bit, and this really goes to John's point, and I appreciate John making that for me, is that it's so much less expensive to wire now It doesn't mean that just because there's an HDMI set up on the wall that we have to put something there. He's going to have to fill these locations, and they've got to be, in my view, they've got to be reasonable, because we, on the IT side of it, I don't want to see our network servers, our network video recorders bogged down needlessly broadcasting something that somebody doesn't really have an absolute need for. So in any case, the wiring is what's important at this point. I want you to have an understanding, though, that what I've described to you just now in the last 15 minutes or so, these sorts of decisions and all these wants and needs have ripple ramifications, not only for finances, as you pointed out, Pat, but also for the operation of the systems, like, bogging down something because too many people are trying to access something, or the fact that, and John was absolutely right, there is both a need for more phones because of the location of the rooms and the accessibility to those rooms, but there's also the issue of radio communications in the building too. So there's a number of different things going on, but I want you to, I think you have more of an appreciation of the kinds of things that we're having to make decisions on, and sometimes the decision here is going to have an effect down the road, to other things. But I do feel as though the wiring plan is a good one, that we have accommodated and accounted for just about every sort of configuration that is reasonable, without going overboard. And as I said, hopefully when I've got these other quotes, I'll be able to bring back a formal presentation to you, because we're running out of time to be able to get fiber in the building by the start date. So there is a lead time to that. I'm sorry, is there a question?
John has a question.
How many monitors wired?
There are outside of the dispatch workstation, I believe there were 24.
If there's 24 monitors. See, I'm a little concerned. I don't even think there's 24 rooms, even if you count the bathrooms in that building. So, I mean,
Oh, there are.
There are
24.
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
Just, are some rooms having 4 wires?
There's a couple of that are that there's more than one in the same area. There are a few like that, but there's an awful lot that it's just a single connection. So so that's where we are right now. So I do have some other items on the PD. So I've got good news and bad news for you all tonight.
Which one was that?
So what was that?
That was in between news. That was kind of understanding the plight of your staff in trying to make sure that we're working to the plan, managing the money, and holding the PD's wants to a needs standard.
Now it's either going to go up or down conversation.
So the next item is pertaining to some of the operational costs in the building. And in particular, I reviewed with you what the utilities look like. And again, I'll just remind you that those are from engineers who are probably conservative. We won't know until we've got a full year in the building, but for budget purposes. But then we also requested figures from our janitorial company on the cleaning. So again, this is all part of the budget process, collecting the information that we need. So currently they clean the police department, our current police department, twice a week. Although, you look at 13 weeks in a quarter, so it works out to be 8.67 times, I guess, a month, something like that. But in any event, it's $694 a month for the current PD, twice a week. The quote that they brought back, and this is based on reducing the square footage that would need to be cleaned for those areas that they would rarely if ever be in, such as evidence and, other archival storage, things of that sort. So the number they came back with was $180 per cleaning, which works out to be $1,561 a month, or $18,720 for the year. So we're spending about $6,000 now, so it's about 3 times. So, again.
3 times the amount of space.
Well, we actually have 5 times the amount of space on the upper floor, which is really the floor that they do the majority of cleaning. And I think today, they don't do evidence downstairs, they don't do the server room. They may do the locker room and the EOC, the current EOC, but so my question for you is, is this something that you're going to want to go out to bid? Where we've been very happy with the cleaning company. They've done a great job. We could look at cutting down the square footage that they're cleaning, or we could look, evaluate that, see if there's more that we could cut out. Look at some other type of schedule where something is done once a month in the lower volume areas, or once a quarter, and then other things, more frequently. But I think I speak for Gail and who worked on this so hard to get these people and find these people, that we really do have a very good company that we're working with, and Lisa as well, right?
I recall having problems with cleaning companies over and over and over again.
Over many years.
Someone that Lisa knows. I would be in favor of going over the schedule of what they're cleaning and what they're not cleaning, because, a fitness room, they can clean on their own. Plain and simple. You want to use the fitness room, clean it. Period. End of discussion. They don't really need us to pay to clean their exercise room. The taxpayers it's a huge, huge volume of money that we're putting out on this police station. They can pony up some areas where they could actually clean themselves, sort of kind of like a locker room.
Are we going to add that to the job description? Or just expect they're going to do it on their own?
It could be a task that the chief delegates. Share the wealth.
Kirk?
Along that line, I guess, in this time of COVID, and who knows how long that's going to last, what would our liability be if, they don't clean the room as well, and it's not disinfected the way it should be, and an officer comes down with COVID, what's our liability?
Probably no different than we come in and sanitize, and 5 minutes later, someone comes in and infects it because we're not constantly disinfecting, so.
But if we know that we're not cleaning it, does that increase our liability, I guess?
We don't know that we're not cleaning it, we're just having someone else clean it. Not the cleaning company.
Again, but if we know, if the cleaning company provides us with some type of coverage, whatever, I don't know what the right word is, coverage to help us in the case if something comes back to us.
I think whose other idea was to look at what you could, if there are ways to reduce, but I don't know, I honestly, I don't know that you could require or ask union
To be the janitor.
I think it's something.
Pick up after themselves.
No, but we could decide to clean it once a month.
Right.
Sure.
John?
What's our total overall? I'm looking at, my chain of thought here is that possibly we have the park, we have the building there, we have town hall, we have a police station, we have a senior center. When are we getting that close to that? Maybe we should have a janitor, handyman type thing to go and just help out and do a lot of these things around town.
Out of Public Works.
So We did at one point. I don't know if you recall, probably back in that one.
17.
Oh, no, I
15.
think earlier than that. Yeah, maybe 13, 14, 15, somewhere in there. We did have a part-time employee. And it was before, it was when Catherine Wisner was still here.
Yes.
And that just didn't work out, let's just say.
Getting them to keep coming was one of our big problems. Personality clashes was another one.
Right, you
No.
remember.
That
So,
was 2015.
Right.
This is 2020. We have a public works director that's very good at motivating and getting people and interviewing them. And I really think that it's time that we start taking control of that. With all the different things.
so we're
Looking
currently,
for at least.
we're currently spending $18,000 a year on the current contract. And between, Riverfront and Town Hall, Police Station, and then also the senior center they do for free.
Right.
It works out, it's $1,498 a month. Is what it is.
And we're going to raise that up by
12,000 roughly,
by another 12,000 a year. That would be
so 30,000.
$30,000 a year.
Of course, that's if we're unsuccessful in cutting down the square footage, and they did provide a lesser square footage to be cleaned, but we could probably go back and revisit that.
Peter?
Just for the record, Parks Commission, along with having the cleaners, has Paul Rushlow 3 days a week that also does cleaning and stuff, checking the facility at Riverfront.
How many hours? You
Usually 3 hours
9
a
hours
day,
week.
unless he's doing some pesticide, herbicide stuff. But yeah, 9 hours a week.
And we also have a public works employee comes through after meetings and sanitizes
Yeah.
the building.
Could all be
We're
one guy.
on the, right on that line threshold. Be a good idea.
I kind of agree with what John is saying. We should at least research that. I think we should at least research that avenue and maybe go into something full-time here and.
Part-time.
Well,
If possible, part-time. I'm sorry.
well, you're looking at $30,000 a year would not be a full-time position. Or no?
I guess I was thinking of benefits and
Kinda.
insurance and all that, that if
Oh,
it's
so
not
you,
going
oh,
on.
I'm thinking, yeah, you could do it without benefits, so, right, under 30, I get what you're.
If you just using $30,000 as a number, and based on a 40-hour week, it's just for rounding 1450
Mhm.
an hour.
So we could base it on like something different.
And I don't know what you pay per hour for
Right.
what you get. I mean, that company can come in here and you can get someone that works fast. And they do it in 2 hours and you're still paying the same amount, whether it takes them 2 hours or whether it takes them 6 hours.
And they're bonded.
So why don't we get some more information for you, and
Play with the idea of maybe even doing a hybrid,
A hybrid what?
have an employee and then have the company and perhaps maybe have less and let them do some of the cleaning at a less expense.
So we can, we've got a few things to look at, including going back, looking at the square footage that is currently cleaned, which rooms are cleaned, what we could cut back in the new building, as well as look at an analysis of the feasibility of a part-time or full-time person.
And also, presently, the cleaning company doesn't do windows unless we pay extra, so we add that in.
Is there, so you said, was it over 18,000 a year? Is there any special added thing that you do, such as windows, such as a spring cleaning or a deep clean or, seasonal cleaning?
Trying to think, we have our former company, we did pay to do certain other types of cleaning. strip the floors. Trying to think what else. I think the windows was one also.
These windows we have.
These
Carpet
windows,
cleaning.
right.
You need to lift them.
So in any case, I think I have an understanding, and I'm sure we can
Do your mojo.
take a quick look at that. So now for the good news.
Now for the good news.
The good news is that, as I mentioned before, for the, and I don't have the final number, but we were talking about the school district return of monies to the towns. So the number had been somewhere in the $600,000 to $800,000 range and $900,000 range, and it looks like it's more like 1.4 million. So what that means to the town of Tilton is that our school tax rate should be reduced somewhere in the 80-cent area. So the number I was given was a little bit higher than that, but we'll see. What it
Does that
actually
money
comes out
come
to be.
back to us, or is it being
Well,
taken off of taxes?
No, it comes back to us through a reduction of the tax rate. That's how that comes back.
In 21.
80 cents a
No,
thousand?
in this.
Hallelujah.
20.
So
Yeah,
it's,
it's gonna be slightly more than that.
so the taxpayers see it less in their tax bill.
December.
That's right. That's right. And that will, that should be a big help, I would think.
Yeah, 80
That's
cents.
That's pretty significant.
Sure, 80 cents, yeah, around that.
The,
Is that 80 cents compared with last year or compared with what they would have asked for if we were going to school?
well, the actual number was an increase. The original number was.
Oh, I'm sure it was.
And because of the, you have to recall the formula is really what sometimes fairly or unfairly dictates what, obviously the individual towns have to pay in terms of tax rate, and it's based off of average daily attendance and also equalized value. One of which is 1 year in arrears and the other is 2 years in arrears. So there's always a lag to these things, but the bottom line is that that we would have had an increase. I think the last time I spoke to you about this tax rate, I thought, if it just negated that increase, it would be good. Now it looks like we're going to have an 80-cent decrease. So I haven't gotten anything official, but I have it on very good authority. That's going to be slightly more than that. So I feel comfortable at least discussing it with you, and we'll just have to wait and see. So that was the good news.
Well, that is good news.
Let's see.
So that'll be almost like sticker shock, because they're gonna have to make that up some point.
Well, and that's the downside, because next year it probably means that we're going to see a seesaw here.
Look at that
Yeah,
1
this
year and
year,
then whammo,
and
it's
we're
going to go back up.
the next year, unfortunately. And I think we're also going to see in that year, we're going to see the effect of our equalized value more as compared to Northfield. And that's really where we're going to see our hit in terms of that formula in next year's, in
Wasn't there
21
a
taxes.
formula committee formed to revisit that?
By statute, every 5 years, or,
Well,
yeah, I believe it's every 5 years. it
didn't
has
they
to
just
be.
finish?
No, I think the last one was 17, and was it 17? 18?
Yeah.
Were you on the last
Yeah, I
one?
think it was 17.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe I was in the last one.
Oh, was it? Were you the last?
I served on 2 of them in the last 10 years, and I really felt that it should be more based on the children attending, where they're coming from, as opposed to the equalized value.
That's what drives the cost.
That's what drives the cost, exactly. But
Isn't it voted on though every 10 years? It's visited every 5, but every 10 it comes to a vote.
it could be voted on sooner than that if
Because
there's
it
a
was
change.
a while ago that we voted on it, that I recall.
I never called.
That was when we switched from we were paying the same percentage as Northfield, the 37 3/4.
It has changed since. It
We
has
that,
changed since.
well, yeah, that changed, but
Yeah, there was
They
one
still-
other change.
huh?
There was one other change. But every 5 years, there's a meeting, and they can bring that to the school district meeting, the formula committee, if they have a change to it. So and I think it was changed since then, but.
Who is the Tilton representative? Somebody from the
Well,
school board?
They're appointed, no, they're appointed by the moderator of the school district.
Uh-huh.
And there may be, it's a group of, I believe it was a group of 9. I think there's a selectman, there's a school board member, and then a member of the public, if I remember correctly, from each, representing each town. Does that sound correct?
Yes, yeah.
So, in any event, so that was the good news, and that pretty much does it for me. So I wish I had more information for you, but I do want you to understand there's a lot of decisions being made with the building in the best interest and keep the finances in check. And we're, it's going to be a big challenge come the end of the year, beginning of next year when we're moving in, at least from my vantage point. There's a lot of moving parts that have to move smoothly. So,
Well, I personally put a lot of faith in you too, to make these choices for us.
Yeah.
I'm not qualified to say, hey, the port goes over here. I'm not even a little bit, and 1,000 other things that you guys take care of on my behalf. So thank you very much.
very good. Thanks very much.
So since you are having that discussion, I wonder if we shouldn't talk about really quickly the move itself and, how do you want that to happen? Who should be in charge of? I assume you want 3 bids, moving companies. Is that something you want the PD to handle? Is that something you want? I guess it's just looking for direction that we probably haven't even thought about it.
Can we talk about this next week and give us a chance to
Yes.
collect our thoughts and ideas so that we can have an intelligent conversation?
Why don't we ask these 2 plus the chief to put their heads together and say how do we want to attack it?
Yeah. And then come back and let us know what you guys think, because,
What your opinion is.
and we'll work on it together.
And I can tell you that I have worked a technology plan. I have servers and firewall being taken care of by someone, and have a plan for the other items. But Jeannie's right. There's so many more things outside of the technology. So
I think our public works right now is stretched to the max.
Yeah.
I don't know how much more they can take on, and particularly if we're done in the end of December, January, if there's a snowstorm and we're in the middle of trying to get them into they're out trying to plow. I mean, we have to think about this.
well, if I could just offer that I think you have to be prepared to have a professional moving company do the work. There are so many packed filing cabinets of files, evidence, other from years and years and years that have to go. From my personal opinion, it's worth the money. Having the police either try to do it or some other employees that aren't really movers, I think is not a good use of money or resource. And also that anyone we would get would be bonded and professional.
Does that mean
company
the
to be able to do
cage
it
goes
quickly.
downstairs when they move?
The cage currently, their current cage?
It's downstairs here in town hall?
It's interesting. I've wondered about that myself. I think for the contents, I believe, are going to be going. I imagine the cage would not be moving. There wouldn't be a need to move the cage itself, just the contents of it.
Except the prisoners could move.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Next thing on the agenda are the selectmen's reports. I'll go first. On commencing October 14th at 9:30, will be starting the town amnesty days down at the transfer station. Your vehicle will have to have a Town of Tilton sticker. Just got mine today. And it won't be allowed to dump if you don't have the sticker. Come by the town hall, and the stickers are free to any of the taxpayers, any of the residents, I should say. And they open at 8, that goes to 3:30, the 14th, 15th, and 16th, and 8:30 to 4 on Saturday, the 17th. The information is on the front page of the town website, and that's all I got. Eric?
I'll just make a statement that I'm concerned about Halloween in terms of, I'm not worried about having it, I'm worried about being overwhelmed. Because it seems like more and more towns are not encouraging Halloween this year. And I want to make sure that our kids have it. And when I say our kids, I'm going to include the school district kids, because that's where most of these kids are. But I'm just worried about being overwhelmed. Other than that, because I thought we were going to be at 7 o'clock, I was going to bypass my time. So I have nothing else.
Okay, I'm sure that we'll be hearing from the chief about this, because I've got questions myself, certainly, because we have the potential for 400 or 500 people downtown in a tight place, and what does that look like? And you can't
Good thing.
do IDs. So I don't know. Chief will have a presentation, I think. Is that it, John? Eric?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, John.
Okay, so we had a budget meeting last night. We started having outside agencies come in. We had CASA, Lakes Region Mental Health, Pines, and they will be, it was said that we vote on how much we would like to fund them or what next week. So they came in. We also discussed the Island Concert Series and didn't feel it was necessary for the Hartwell family to come in and present that. We're all very well aware of it. We did vote on funding the request amount for the Island concerts at $2,000, and that was voted on for in favor, and one was opposed to funding. The next week we have, now the selectmen are invited, so it's very helpful if any of the selectmen, because we will be, and Pat, John, we will be having to decide on this as selectmen, what we recommend to fund it. So this is the opportunity for the selectmen to also ask any questions of any of these people who are asking for funding, and to get to know it or make any comments as with your personal experiences with them. Next week, New Beginnings. Kathy Keller will be presenting that. I think some of you have met her before. We have Franklin Visiting Nurse Association, Kristen Albert, Jenny Boyce, who's the Revenue Integrity Manager, and they will be here next week. All Memorial Library, Jennifer Davis, we all know Jennifer, and it's a good idea, to listen on that. You might get some, find out how they're doing with their funding with COVID and operation costs. And there could possibly, if anybody else is shifted into that position to do that. So next Wednesday, 7 o'clock, if any of the selectmen can just call in, because it's a good thing to get some information. And let's see, so there's On the island, there's some rose bushes that appeared there, and there's a bucket there with, that if anybody at any time is going by, can take the bucket, run down to the river, grab a pail of water, and water them or any other plants to sort of help out, to give them a good start. And I think that is all I have.
Okay, thank you very much, John.
Just have a question. And I don't know if it's proper to ask, but you said that one person was against funding something for the,
They were opposed to funding the Island Concert Series.
is it proper to ask what their reasoning was?
Well, you could, I suggest, because there was a lot of other information
Yeah.
on these other agencies, I suggest that the selectmen watch the video.
Okay.
They felt that wasn't something that should be funded, that they could get money somewhere else. The funding, I don't have it right with me. I'm thinking it was around $14,000 or so to operate, right around there. The Hartwell family chips in on their own. I think it's $7,300 or $7,900 out of their pocket. There were other couple families that chipped in, Mitchell's. And I hate saying names because if you forget somebody, they're
Right.
left out. So
There's a
very
couple
grateful.
Staying within
Yeah.
that, should be in a family.
Mr. Salutella.
Does the town Northfield chip in?
In the
Yeah.
town,
Yeah.
Northfield chips in $2,000.
Well, they have been up to this
Okay.
point anyway.
I did have the opportunity to talk to Titus for a good conversation before, God bless her, before Allison passed. She made sure that she set up the schedule for next year.
Yeah, he does.
I mean, talk about devotion, that it was all set. So the bands are all scheduled and set, thanks to Allison and family that, and they'd like to continue it. And I think it might be a thing where some other people in town might be able to help out to keep this 25-year tradition, 27-year
27 years, yeah.
tradition going. And it's, and I think the seeds been planted and it's well attended. The amount of money that comes back, just the sales of hot dogs and hamburgers, that offsets the operation costs of other town things. So, yeah. So, yeah, I urge everybody to please watch the video from last night so they can see the funding questions.
Well, it's also good to watch because it was very interesting interactions between agencies and the budget committee.
That's it. Thanks.
Okay. Pat, you're up next.
Yeah, I have a few. First thing on my list is, do you think that we could afford a box or two of tissues on the selectmen's table when we come on a Thursday night? And that's in the budget? Maybe make a note of that.
We ran out last week.
Could I make a motion that we have tissues on the table on Thursday evenings?
I think a consensus is adequate.
I bring a
If you
handkerchief.
need a motion, I'll make a motion. I
Yeah.
Just want some
Yeah.
tissues up here.
Yeah, no.
Got some wet wipes or whatever up there.
Yeah,
I'm just saying, that's what we got.
that goes great on our nose.
I know you, I hear you.
Especially during budget.
The
Go
Tilton-
old school, get a handkerchief. That's what I do.
Tilton School is back again.
How far are you?
Yeah.
To help the seniors break leaves. They've contacted me once again, and this is now in their 19th year that they've done this. So we'll be getting together with Julie Coglow. And they'll be going out in the next few weekends raking our senior citizens and doing odds and ends projects for them. different groups will be going up to do that. That's that. An issue came up on our bus in what to do if one of our riders were coming back from a medical procedure that they underwent anesthesia. Would you still allow them to be on the bus? And community action program does not. We certainly wouldn't do that. If for students, we would have somebody, a nurse with that person. You know, it's Jeannie spoke with Primex and they're covered. I'm more concerned with the driver. This is a volunteer driver. This is not a trained medical EMT. So I would prefer to addend the rider's manual and put a stipulation that, you know, if it's the doctor's appointment, I get that. That's not a problem, it's not an issue, but if you're having a medical procedure where you're actually going under anesthesia and for some reason that you have a reaction to that, because they just say, okay, who's with you? Oh, the senior bus is picking you up, boom, boom, you're on the bus. If you have a reaction to that and something happens, now the bus driver has to pay attention to the road and to that person having a reaction and trying to get 911 on the phone. That's not a very good safety conscious place to be. I mean, I've been there with my children. It's nerve wracking. You have to pull over. It's terrifying, absolutely terrifying. And I can't imagine putting any one of our volunteers through that. So I'm asking the board's permission to allow us to put on the driver manual, not to if they ought not to ask them, but if they offer, they're having a medical procedure and they are going under anesthesia, that they have somebody that present with them. If they do not have somebody present with them, that they will need to find somebody to get a ride from. Because that's a very dangerous, in my opinion, situation. I'm not an EMD.
The driver doesn't have any say in who gets on the bus?
No, because it's a municipality, we don't, well, so far, we don't say who says, there are conditions that if they cause conditions or grief or if their temperatures are high or COVID conditions or things like that, they don't get on the bus. But if it's just a Tilton resident that wants to go to the doctors, they call, and if our driver is available, then we will say yes. And that we will say, the driver will pick you up at such and such a time, make sure you're ready. And then we only have one driver. And then the driver will pick that person up. Right now, he's very busy. But then they get on the bus and that's it. They go to the appointment, he waits for them, maybe it's, half hour, whatever, and then he brings it back. So we haven't had any issues, but there is a person in town that has quite a lot of medical issues. And they call volunteer driver program and then they call us. And if we say yes, that we have a driver, then they call volunteer driver program back and cross it off their list. But Rosa had called and alerted us to this, and they said it's a policy for them. They don't do that. So I asked the woman if the person, and sorry, identified it as a woman, I apologize for that. I asked the person, are you going on the anesthesia? And they said yes. So, and they felt, would you still take me? And I said, are you going to have anybody with you No. So I think that if the person had assistance with them, then I would feel different about it. Because the person with them, sitting with them, could always make a phone call, alert the bus driver could pull over, call 911, and that person could be with them, and then that eliminates the bus driver from any interacting with this person. It's 911's there, and it's there.
Okay, so what exactly are you proposing?
Well, I'm proposing to add it to our driver manual to
You need
Trying to
permission
say-
to do this?
well, you accepted the driver's manual. You all said this is what the protocols are all in the driver's manual. We wrote the driver's manual, and the board accepted the driver's manual. I want to make an addendum to the driver's manual that says, in these kinds of situations, in this kind of situation, I would prefer to say no on this kind of situation.
Jeannie?
Did you get the email I sent you from Primex? So you,
I did. Even, so Primex says they're covered. We're covered. But Primex addresses whether or not they're insurance and they're covered. But they don't address the safety issue of driving a bus and someone having a reaction to whatever, a seizure or whatever, to something that just happened at the hospital.
Right.
They don't address that part.
right, but they did say, and that was my concern, is the liability of a discrimination suit
Well,
by us denying. And so,
we're not denying them, we're asking them to have somebody ride with them. So we're not denying them, we're saying, we're making it a criteria and saying, if you are going to have a medical procedure done that causes you to be under anesthesia, you need to have somebody with you.
yeah, and that sounds like a good solution. It just,
Right.
I wonder, since you said CAP doesn't allow it,
Right.
first student doesn't allow it, so how do they?
Well, first student requires a nurse. So if we have a child that has seizures,
Yeah.
they require a nurse.
So that's the solution, is just to say, if you have a procedure that involves anesthesia, you need to have somebody with you on the bus.
And I think that would cover, because, the driver, what Primex is basically saying in the email is that the town is covered no matter what. The driver is covered, the town is covered, and, the person is covered. But they don't really think about the aspect of the safety of that person in trying to avoid any type of collision or any type of mishap when you all of a sudden are driving along and this person falls on the floor, collapses. Now you've got a catastrophic event, and what if you're downtown Laconia with the lights going and you're trying to stop at the lights and there's horns blaring and everything else, and you're trying to figure out how to dial 911, get off the road, and figure out what's going on with the person that's your driver. So there's a lot going on at one time, and if somebody else was assisting her, they could communicate and say, please call 911. Be on the phone.
Sure.
I'm gonna go to a safe place. I'm gonna pull over. I'll be with you in a second. Then it's done.
Right, and that makes sense, and it sounds like a good solution. I would just, I guess, since they brought the issue up, I would think it would be appropriate just to say this is our solution to that. I don't know if there was a claim of a discrimination suit, then our insurance is not kicks in. So that's what I'm saying, is it sounds like a good solution, but I feel like just because based on what we got from Primex, we should go back and just say, this is our solution. I just want to make, well, I mean, I'm just trying to protect the town.
I say blue, you say gray, but that's, whatever whatever is determined here is, I'm asking the board to try to let us implement this because this person needs to go at the end of October. And she'll be put under anesthesia. And, if I say to her, can you have somebody that will ride with you? Okay, if so, then we do it. And then I can put the protocol out for bus drivers that do, want to do that, so.
Okay, John?
A lot of times, if somebody does go to the hospital for doctor for procedure, they tell people ahead of time that they request somebody be there for them when they get home or to monitor them. It's part of the discharge type thing, so it's more than anesthesia. Maybe it could be based on something like that if you're being discharged or require other people, the bus driver does not count as one of those people. You must have an assistant to be with you as well as greet you at the house.
And that's articulated much better than what I just said. That's exactly the point I'm
I'm
trying to
trying to
make.
just,
Right,
so maybe we can work on some wording and then,
right.
Back.
So do you get what he's trying to say? So if the hospital requires you to have it.
hospital or doctor requires that you are released to somebody's custody for,
If you have to have somebody drive you home because you're having a medical procedure, that person should not be the bus
the
driver.
bus
It
driver
should be
will not
somebody
be
else.
responsible for that. You must
Right.
provide your own.
It seems like sound policy to me.
Some people may not say it, or at least if that's the policy, then we should be covered, at least I'm very clear with that, as well as, if you pick somebody up at the hospital and they come out in a wheelchair,
Right.
Well, we pick up wheelchairs, don't we?
Yeah,
well,
I just don't
guess,
want to
no,
discourage.
I'm sorry, not in a wheelchair, but somebody that's being discharged.
Yeah.
I do not want to discourage volunteer drivers from coming forward. And if we have an incident like this, it's going to discourage people from coming forward. And I really would love to get this, we can have a resolution rather than something else.
Get some wording together. My thoughts.
All right, next. We good with that? Jeannie, you good with that? You're gonna follow?
It sounds like we're gonna put the language together.
No, it sounds like you're gonna talk with Primex and put the language together.
Oh, okay.
Or collaborate.
Because you're gonna go back to, you said you wanted to go back to Primex on that. And if they had another person with them, explain to them that if the hospital requires that they be picked up by somebody, we just want the language so that it's not the bus driver, that we require to have somebody else on the bus with them.
Provide.
As for a student.
Then that's way we don't have that way we're not discriminating and not saying, no, you can't get on the bus. Yes, you can get on the bus, but we want you to, who's your designated
Not
person?
providing that service.
Right.
Question.
Yeah.
Does first student, since you drive for first student, don't they have a written policy on that, whatever you said on their example, that we could at least use as a template to rewrite and present that? Because I think Primex is going to want to see whatever we put in writing, as an example of what the policy is going to be. And then they put their stamp of approval on it.
It comes from the schools, but it's, and it requires a nurse, and we're not gonna require a nurse. I suppose a template is.
I mean, I guess my other thought would be, similar to what John said, is what is, I don't think they do surgeries at Franklin anymore, but at Laconia, or a doctor that, what is their procedure? What is their procedure for releasing someone who's been under anesthesia? Are they allowed to ride a bus? Or, does the, their friend who went with them have to sign them out and they get back on the bus? So I guess that would be my, I don't know, just my thought.
Be interesting. I don't know that answer. All right, next. We all good with that?
Yeah.
All right. So I haven't seen for quite a while, and I don't know if they even exist anymore, the town and city magazines. Do they even come in?
If they come
I
online.
haven't seen them in several years, I don't think.
Oh, I've seen
We
them
used to
within
get
a
'em.
year, but I've seen them within the year. It's sort of like,
They're online.
okay. The other thing that I haven't seen is non-public minutes. We have not corrected non-public minutes. We have not unsealed the minutes of the ones that we can unseal for years. I think that it's been at least 2 or 3 years now that, and we've had, Lord knows, we've had enough non-public meetings, but I have not seen one non-public 7 minutes that we should be correcting and filing. And it's been years, not months. But has anybody else seen them?
I think we had a batch that was brought to us to unseal.
That was a while ago.
Ashley was with us. Ashley was with us when we last did them, I believe.
No, I was here.
Yeah.
We did.
Kenny
And
brought a
the
bunch.
the board at the time directed us to periodically look at those, which we do. We look at those non-public minutes and say, can these be unsealed? Can these not be unsealed? So we are doing that. We did do it at least once since I've been here. I did ask the question early on when I first came here, why? I thought it was odd that this board doesn't look at non-public minutes. I mean, every place I've ever been, we review the non-public minutes.
We're supposed to.
We're supposed to.
We haven't seen any to review.
But what I'm saying is, since the day I was here and I asked a question, that's what I was told, that they don't do that. And I never had anyone from the board say where the non-publics review.
Well, here you go. And we haven't been doing that, true enough, right?
I don't know.
And we can certainly start doing that,
Yeah, we probably should,
but we have.
but we definitely should.
We haven't some, I do remember, I think there's a batch
Yeah.
that came through.
All I know is, since I've been a
A
selectman.
couple months.
So.
Since I've been here, we've done it.
And how long you been here? 2 years? Yeah. So right when you came here, we did it.
I'd have.
So
to
we
look at
should be looking at them, we should be correcting them, so we
I guess that's my question is, that's what you directed me to do, was look at them and say, do these need to be unsealed? Periodically look at the minutes and say, can these be unsealed? And if they can, bring them to the board. So that's what I've been doing. But if you want to do it another way, that's fine. And if you want to start, I think it's a good thing if you want to start looking at the non-publics. That's good.
Great, if you could come up with let's start.
So just to be clear, we're going to start looking at the non-public minutes. You're going to start reviewing those and correcting those. Okay, good, we can do that. For past non-public minutes that have been sealed, do you want to, how do you want to handle that? Do you want me to bring a batch to you and have you go through and say, seal, unseal? Or,
I could see this taking forever in the selectmen's minutes. If we go through every set of non-public minutes for the
We're
last
supposed
10
to.
years.
it should be periodically, and that's why I'm bringing it up, because we should be doing this periodically. So now now it says, okay, now we'll have a bundle. So why don't we just bring up a couple every night and see if we can't catch up? I don't know, but we need to start doing it the right way and doing it I mean, they either sealed or unsealed. There's a lot that need to stay sealed because they're not corrected or they're personnel issues. So they're, until the matters are corrected, and there's some, there need to be unsealed, and there's not that many. But it should be our decision whether or not we unseal them. But in order for you to look at them, we have to give you permission to, or a selectman to give you permission to look at them, to make a decision to bring to us whether they should be unsealed or sealed. You can't just go downstairs and say, I'd like to look at the non-public minutes. Nobody can. We have to ask permission, but from the board to go look at the minutes.
That's news to me. I've seen non-public minutes in the past.
In the selectmen's meeting.
No. In the office downstairs.
And
I wanted copies of not copies, I wanted to reread the minutes of a non-public session.
but the prior board, in the prior meeting, did the board say to you,
No.
Joe, you should read this, it's, and then say, go ahead and do it?
It's for my own information.
Oh.
I was actually there.
Oh.
So it's not something like from 2006 or
Once
something.
they're sealed, you're supposed to ask the board to unseal them, to reread them. That's in,
That's my mistake.
knowing the territory.
That's my mistake.
So, all right, I don't know how you want to do it. I mean, I'm game for anything, just bringing up a couple of at a time or back to the time. I don't know. Doesn't matter, but I mean, I'm okay with giving Joe permission if you have the time to take a batch and look at them and say these need to be remain sealed or is not to remain sealed or.
And which parts of them can be released and which parts can't be released? Because some of those non-public
Right,
minutes
there are
would
parts
be,
that can be released, but take the ones that can all be released first and then go back and do the other ones later. Whatever, you got to come up with a plan. Somebody's got to start doing it someplace because nobody's seen them. We don't even know what's in there when it's transcribed from the
That's true.
recorder to there. We don't know if it's correct. And Lord knows if we can remember what happened.
I was going to
last
see
week.
at this point, how
A
are we
year
going to
ago.
remember what happened in 2014?
Hmm?
So that should be an interesting exercise. Bring your sleeping bags.
So what, for clarification though, are we gonna give Joe permission to go down and,
I can't drive right now.
All right, so, but we don't know if they're correct or not, so we
No.
first all have to look at them first. And while we're looking at them, we can say, okay, we can unseal them at the same time.
Can we just do 1 or 2 a week? Just start somewhere, grab 2 and we'll start and see.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, anything that is a personnel issue is sealed permanently, and there's a motion to be made to be sealed permanently.
They
So
are,
that would not be necessary for us
not
to go and
those.
never even consider.
We have to approve the minutes that
We haven't
they were
approved those
done to
minutes.
begin with.
Yeah, I'm going over.
That whole approval of minutes thing is tenuous at best. Lots of towns don't do that minute approval thing. You always have, but it's not a requirement.
Well,
It
you
just
don't
is.
know what's in there. I mean, it's, anything can happen from transcribing from a recorder to a
That's true, depending on who's
a
doing the
person
meeting
to,
minutes. There's only 2 people that have done them. Now, maybe 3 if Jeannie has done some in Gail's absence, but
who's 3?
Catherine Moser, Gail, and maybe Jeannie. Depends on how far back we go. So let's just grab a couple and start knocking them down. Because you're right. Overall, you're absolutely right. We should release the information that should be released.
All right. So we got that. We're moving right along.
Yeah, sure.
I've got 2 phone calls that people were in town hall. While they were in town hall, several police came in and without masks. Nobody checked them, nobody talked to them, nobody said you need to put a mask on. And while these taxpayers were in town hall doing their business, they saw several of the staff members come down from upstairs and from the front office walking around town hall without masks. Now, if there's a requirement on the door for masks, why are we walking around? I understand being in your office with your mask, without your mask, if you're in your own office, but if you're walking around where the public is there, why are we allowing that? And why are we allowing the police to come in without masks?
Didn't know we were.
So can we?
When I'm here, people wear masks. They're just wearing masks when I come in, and they're always about the mask. And every time I've ever seen an officer in the building personally, myself, they're always wearing a mask. That's just me.
Anytime I've been in the building, I've always seen staff with a mask. Anytime I've been in a building, I've seen staff with a mask. However, anytime I've been in the building where there's a police officer in the building, they have never had a mask on, ever. As a matter of fact, I was talking with Tim the other day, and someone came in and bing, 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 nothing, no mask.
John?
We send them a memo and just let the chief know that to tell the guys and also reiterate to the employees.
I can do that.
Yeah, and that's one of the things about being a public employee, public works worker, anything, or on the side of the road, everybody's calling. If they even pick up a cup of coffee for a second or sit down for a second, it's gonna be like that. So they, they just need to be aware that you guys know how it is.
During this whole mask issue, I have yet to come into town hall and have a single time where everyone I passed was wearing a mask. So this whole mask thing is bogus. So once the masks are off, you've exposed yourself, but you've also put yours in the air for the other people. These are not perfect. They don't stop viruses. So this is a big hoax. We either do it or we don't.
So noted.
All right,
Dan?
Tim, next.
Yeah.
So I really made a exerted effort to try to figure out how to actually put something in on our works, because I really would love our steps and porches, ramps at the senior center done. I was up there the other day and they're dry, cracking and peeling. And, this is now the second year that I've asked that we could get them pressure washed and sealed. They're really dry and cracking, and particularly the back ones, because they're exposed to the sun out back. And I just don't want them to start going up and cracking altogether where we have to replace them. This is the town building. So I can't figure it out. Honest to God, I can't figure that thing out. So I'm putting out a plea. Thank you, please and thank you. If we could just put in one more request for that, for the ramps to be done under buildings and maintenance. And there was one more thing that I had written here.
I bet you Tim could show you how that iWorks thing goes.
Yeah.
iWorks, it's iWorks, right? Yeah.
You don't know it's iWorks, it's just a
So
section
the
on
program
website.
that she's talking about,
But
I
it's a
think.
section on the website. it's not.
Oh.
You don't know it's iWorks. It's just a section of the website, if I'm not mistaken.
I know what okay.
But you know what I'm talking about.
Now I know what you're
It was like, forget it, I just was
That's-
so
yeah.
disgusted by it. Anyway, there's one other thing that I really need to talk about. I had it written here. All right. Go to
Well, if
Peter.
you run across it,
Go to Peter,
sing out and we'll come back to you. Peter, you're up last.
No, Jeannie can have my time.
Okay. So that's a pass from Selectman Fogg. Are you all set over
I
here,
don't
Pat?
know.
Okay.
I can't remember.
All right. So the next up is the town administrator's report.
In your report from me, you'll see that we got the 2021 rates from Health Trust. Medical insurance will increase by 6.4%. Short-term disability will go up 41 cents per thousand. And dental life and long-term disability saw no increase, or will see no increase. So I talked with Tim about this, and we both agreed, given everything else that's happening right now, and these rates are pretty good, that we should stay with Health Trust.
6.4% seems low, at least compared to the private sector.
Well, Health Trust is, they're very customer service oriented. They're a good group.
Make a motion that we go with Health Trust for our insurance needs for 2021.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Oh, never mind.
Okay,
I'll ask you.
hearing none. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
Second item, the nominee, which I obviously don't want to say in public, for the Small Town America Civic Volunteer Award was selected. Our nominee will be recognized in the press and on the Civic Plus website. We're going to be getting a certificate that we can then make arrangements to make a presentation. This also, because of this nominee winning, also have available to us a free website in honor of the nominee. It can be a new website for a department, for instance, economic development. It could be Main Street, it could be a senior center, possibly, other ideas. They'll create a website up to 50 pages of content, free with hosting for 1 year. So, and then after that 1 year, and if you want to end it, you can. There's no obligation. I wanted to find out if you want to take advantage of this opportunity. And if so, suggestions from you for a website. I don't need the answer, but just want you to think about it. And at the point where we announce or make the honoree aware that they've received this award, we could ask their input as well.
Go with your recommendation, I would. Anybody else?
My curiosity would be, my curiosity would be, what is the cost after the free year? Because if you're gonna make 50 pages of website, potentially, that's a lot of time and effort to have it go poof on day number 366.
It says after that, to continue our website program, you do bill $1,900 a year for annual services commencing January 1, 2022. You are under no obligation to continue. So it could be,
Tim just had a stroke next year, so.
It's a good question, a good point. It could be a, project related, something just for 1 year.
But you could rip those pages out and post them onto our website.
And we don't
easily.
have to take advantage of the website either. It's just,
Throwing it out there.
What's your thoughts? Jeannie,
I'm sorry,
what
what?
are your thoughts?
I think Tim and I talked a little bit about it. I thought the senior center, especially with the bus, that whole might be a good opportunity.
That's what I see.
I don't know if the sewer commission needs a website, wants a website.
Should we ask the honoree once it's official?
That's what I thought, that person might have some insight.
Because it may tie into one of the groups that that person's associated with.
Good point.
There is one of these things about having a website that gets set up like that. They'll register your name and everything. And then if you start establishing it as a place to advertise or to locate, to give information. Once you say that you're not going to pay that $1,900, you don't get to use that website address anymore. It just goes to non-exist. And you, like, all of a sudden you disappear out of everything. So it's a little.
Well, if you buy that domain and then they can switch the hosting to that domain, you actually still own the domain and you can switch it to and add it as a link, as a what's the word I'm thinking of, Tim?
FTP?
No,
Redirect?
redirect.
Redirect.
Just
So,
type in
yeah, so
something,
you need to be-
you don't even know you get redirected sometimes. You put something in and poof, there you go.
So, yeah, you need to be real careful and you're aware of how they do that. Yeah, Tim's good with websites. That's-
So, like I say, this is not anything we have to act on tonight. In your FYI, you'll see the Tilton Island Bridge Park has been selected as a finalist by the New Hampshire Preservation Alliance for the 2027 SAVE list. There will be a public announcement on Tuesday, October 20th. There's no money attached to this. The nice thing about this is it will be recognized statewide. And if we are looking to make any improvements on the bridge, which I think we will be with our other grant award, it will help us raise money and bring awareness to Tilton and to the bridge. So
Do we own the bridge or do we own the bridge?
we own the bridge right now.
Okay. Have they been notified of this?
No.
Well, they
I
probably
knew.
should be somewhere along the line.
Yes. Although I would say that probably there's, given the direction we're headed, there's probably, but I will.
Yes, for sure.
But I thought my board should know first.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I feel special. We are special.
We are.
All right.
And thank you for your hard work on that.
Absolutely.
Great project. Couple things that I don't have on your, my report. Cindy, our Concord tax collector, was notified that there was some abandoned property that was due to the town of Tilton. I think she worked with Tim on the application. Part of the application requires that the selectmen give the town clerk tax collector the authority to ask for the funds. So I drafted the letter. I think it's like $719 and it's from Burger King.
Yep.
Find some traffic.
And why this money, Tim?
We really don't know. So it would, go back years. We'll have to do some research on it, but that's what the state says. And until we're able to determine otherwise, it's sitting in the town's name.
we could ask Selectman Scanlon to find the trash receptacles and hand deliver them with a red bow.
John?
No, I was-
Okay, yeah, there you go. So, okay, well, make a motion to authorize the town of Tilton's town clerk tax collector to claim funds entitled to Tilton in the amount of, doesn't say,
719, I believe.
What are we doing?
739.20.
739.20. Is there a second?
Fog second.
We have a motion and a second
For what?
to 729.20.
39.20.
39.20 from somebody who owes it. I just
Okay.
named it Burger King. This is money that we're legally entitled to, and we have to authorize the town clerk tax collector to submit a bill or claim the funds due.
I didn't see that on here. That's what I was wondering.
Any other questions? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye.
I,
Opposed? The ayes have it.
The other note that I have from the town clerk tax collector, CARES Act provided $400 million to the Election Assistance Commission to allocate to the states. They extended the deadline to apply, and our town clerk tax collector applied for the maximum allowance for Tilton, which was $7,913.59. We will be reimbursed a fixed rate for each absentee ballot mailed and/or processed for both the primary and the general election. This paperwork is the grant agreement, much like what we did for the municipal relief funds for the town. If you recall, we signed an agreement and then we applied for the money. It's like a two-step process. So once the grant agreement is approved, the town clerk tax collector will submit a reimbursement request due by November 9th for the amount above that I mentioned above. There are many places to sign in this document. There's only one signature line, so I'm asking the board to make a motion that the chair of the board sign the documents as the contractor's signatory.
I'd like to make a motion to have the chair sign the documents.
Is there a second?
I don't like that. I don't like it.
I don't like it either, but some of these things have that, you know.
We always subrogate our authority to the people, and people know that there's 5 select members.
This is a federal grant, and that's their form.
Second,
We have a motion and a second to have the chair sign the forms. Is there any other discussion?
Should have put subrogate our authority.
You know, I
in the
was
motion.
searching for maybe, no. That wasn't the motion. So is there any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
I,
Opposed?
I'll abstain.
No dog in the brace.
Don't know what we're voting on. So,
For me to sign the federal grant papers, we have an abstain, we have a no dog in the race, we have 2 ayes.
Aye.
Okay, the motion carried.
If we had subrogate, I would have gone aye. That's what we did last
I
time.
know.
Joe, maybe after we're,
Yeah, I can sign those at the end.
Wasn't sure what the hallway lights are. Awfully
I
dark.
don't know. That's why
Huh?
I'm up there now.
Dark up there.
You got to get to the top of the stairs to get to the lights, or there's a switch.
That's right, it's too late now, I already went.
Idiot stuff.
I have a flashlight in my pocket.
So if you hadn't heard, Kathy and Chuck Mitchell brought back the 8-foot long map that they were able to get framed professionally through a Moose grant. And it's right now sitting in my office so that it doesn't get knocked around. They'd like to hang it on the wall in the downstairs meeting room. And going to have Kevin do that. I know John offered, but couldn't coordinate schedules. But one of the things we'd like to do, and that's what I'm asking you about, is on the back wall, they've got all that writing. Can we paint over that except for the seal?
You're talking the old tax rate information?
Right. Paint over the wall so we can hang the artwork there and it's not.
It doesn't serve the same purpose. When the selectmen met down there, it had a purpose. Now it doesn't.
I don't see why we can't paint over the,
Yeah.
put the seal, paint over the whole seal, put the seal up here. Make a new seal, put it up here, because this is where we meet. This is where all the boards meet right now.
Is that a
We
stencil?
don't want to seal up there because of your projection though.
That's true. Yes, we can put it down under the window
Or put it,
or up at the very top.
How would you cover it? It's gonna cover the seal anyway, right?
But no, it won't. It'd be centered on the table that's down there. So we'd paint, I'd already talked to Kevin about, we'd paint up to the seal, tape off the seal and paint around it if you wanted to keep the seal. If you aren't wedded to the idea of the seal down there, I would just paint over the whole thing. But I thought maybe you all wanted to keep the seal.
Is he gonna frame it?
It's already framed.
It's already framed?
Oh, it's nice.
Oh, it's archival done.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's real nice.
The whole thing, the grant was to, done all.
It's right down at Jeannie's office. You have to stop
We
by.
had it out on the table 6.
We did have it out on the
Mhm.
table,
More.
but you didn't get the same kind of,
But it wasn't framed.
no, but it is now.
You'll
Thank
have
you,
to
Chuck, for
invite me
that.
to your office then.
John?
You can go in there
Oh.
anytime, up against the wall. It was.
At this time, I personally am all for saving seals. Or at least seal, if we can.
So is that a motion, John? Is that a motion?
Paint the rest, but save the seal.
Is that a motion?
Yes, okay.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to save the seals. Seal, singular. Is there a second? I'll second the motion. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion to save the seals, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay, the ayes have, pardon? You're opposed? Okay, the motion passes.
Okay, so we're going to paint everything except the seal.
Mhm.
Thank you.
We put the seal somewhere.
We
Well,
can still put a
if it's-
seal somewhere else.
It's-
We still can.
John, you just cut out the sheetrock and move it.
that's what I was kind of thinking. You can put something right over it.
Easy now.
50 years from now.
Okay, we can still have it sealed in another place if you want to have that discussion. But now we'll
No,
have
no,
this.
no, I want just the have map down there without the seal, because it's gonna take away, just gonna draw away from it, that's all.
We have the motion that passed.
See how it
That's all.
looks.
Just move the seal to another place, that's all.
Jeannie, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So the next item that I wanted to discuss with you was the pay time off. If any of you have been paying attention to the reports, you'll know that we've got quite a bit of time built up, and we have been sending, I have been on a periodic basis sending emails to the employees reminding them that they need to take the time off. Tim and I have talked about this a little bit and wanted to suggest to the board for you to consider maybe rolling over some pay time off into the new year, allowing employees, if they want to roll over pay time off with the understanding that they would have to use it up within 6 months. I did check with other communities because of what was going on with COVID. They're all experiencing the same kind of issue. And generally what I'm seeing is they are allowing, it doesn't mean you need to, I'm just telling you what's going on out there. And we talked about, let's say if you allowed 5 days roll over in addition to the 60, which would be 40 hours. That would, in a 6-month period, they would take 1 day a week off to make it. That would be easily achievable, but I think in this last year with COVID, there are a lot of people who normally travel, take time off, didn't. So just something for you to consider. Don't have to make a decision tonight, but we have had people asking. So
How would that affect contractual people? If we do it for non-contractual people, how would that affect contractual people?
Doesn't affect them because they're on a contract.
What we've done in the past that applies to one always applied to the others.
Well, we've got a contract now, so now we have 2 distinct groups.
Okay, well, we've always had a contract in my experience, but point taken, I get that, and I'm loath.
Don't open Pandora on that.
So, just as a reminder, we did accept that first responder stipend that did go against the contract. So I mean, if it's something you want to consider, we could ask that question, and because it would be above and beyond the benefit and it's unusual times because of COVID. But just bringing it up, again, don't have to make a decision tonight.
I just don't want it to be a precedent.
We'll have this.
Hopefully COVID is.
No, we did it. You gave us more hours on a previous year. Why don't you do it again? That's all I'm concerned.
Well, in this-
Because COVID.
Doesn't matter. We have a contract.
Okay, we'll have this conversation, I'm sure, down the road, but we're gonna vote on nothing this evening on it, I don't think, so let's save it for then.
Well, I think that, could you kind of come up with the people that would be affected by it and what it would mean to them as far as numbers? So let's use Jeannie, okay? She has X amount of hours, and if we allow her to roll over 5, that means she'll have X. She'll have to use, would there be anybody still in the situation of losing hours if we allowed that to happen? That would be my, kind of where my question would be.
Yeah, because there are some folks who have a lot of hours that they could, but they could have the option of a buyout if they get that, if they're eligible for that. And we'd have to look at it. But
So that's kind of where I'm going with, I know there are some people here in town hall that have diligently planned November, December, October, November, December with time off, so I know that's coming. And so, and I know I've spoken with the chief 5 times maybe in the last 3 months about, we have numerous people that are almost up in the 200 mark. Over 200 mark, numerous people. And so to your point, if you could kind of look at that and say, if we do that, which I think is I think it's good. Brainstorming, I think it's good. But if we look into it more, is it going to help, or is it still going to affect?
I think this would help.
Yeah, I would think it would help. It's so hard to know what someone's plans are, and change their plans. I would think it would definitely be a help. The concern in looking at some of those names is that they're not across the board. The command staff is pretty heavy on there. Some of the supervision, I should say. So, that's probably going to be a challenge for the chief to work out how that's going to work. But it's got to be better than if they were to lose it. And also buying out, that's go going to cost money there. And the other thing too is that any hours carried over, you could put the stipulation that, not only in time frame that has to be used, but also it can't be, that can't be used in any buyout, residual time. We can track that and make sure that that doesn't happen.
John?
I have a few concerns, that we're going down this path. We have vacation policies so people can get away from work and to be with their families or just their time off. They earn it and they deserve it and they should be taking it. Our town administrator has been diligently sending out warnings and accountings of all this time off. Everybody is aware. It turns out every year that there's always somebody or something that comes up that we need to change that. And if we don't change it, we're villainized. We're horrible people because we stuck to the agreement. We stuck to what it was. And we look bad. Some of the selectmen may say, yeah, let's be nice and let's do this. But then the other ones are the horrible guys. I think we need to stick very strongly to our policies. It's a very liberal policy, plenty of time off. The problem is we give people 5 days or 10 days next year. Now, at the end of the next year, they're going to come out with, instead 200 hours, they're going to have an additional 40 hours on top of that. So we're just pushing this huge mound down the road. It has to be very clear that we have time off so that people can get away from work. It's good for morale. It's good for that. And I don't want to be villainized for sticking to the rule.
Okay, John. And Peter, I apologize to you. I kind of cut you off and I thought we were moving on, but that wasn't true.
No, we're
Would you
fine.
like to finish your thoughts?
No, I'm good.
My only thought on the matter at this time is that I'm not responsible for poor time management. If I've got 2 weeks off, it's my responsibility to take 2 weeks off. If I get a month off, it's my responsibility to take a month off, my own personal feeling. Eric?
I'm just trying to process it in my head. So if person A has, if they have 40 hours of time left on December 31st, are we saying that they can take 1 day off extra a month? Because you said a week. I thought I heard a week when you were talking.
It was just a number, just an idea. So right now, employees can carry over 60 hours.
Yep.
That's their limit.
And how far can they carry that 60 hours?
Right, they can only always ever carry 60 hours. So it never gets beyond 60 hours, right?
Right.
So it's not like you get to the end of the year and you get to add another 60. It's always only 60 hours.
Yep.
But there are, so there are some folks who, I don't know, I can think of one individual planned a big event out of town, quite a bit of time, didn't happen because of COVID. Because they,
Need a Kleenex, Pat?
Bob Peters.
Paper towel.
She's allergic to me, so.
because of COVID, all those plans got canceled. So in that instance, let's say you say you're going to allow them to carry over an additional 40 hours,
Yeah.
right? So now it's 100 hours. But within 6 months of the new year, 2021, they have to use those 40 hours or they lose it.
By the end of May or whatever date.
Right,
we
so
pres-
you're just
or June.
giving them a little bit more time to use that.
But in the meantime, they're still accumulating hours, so they're still gonna get,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I figured 40 hours, that's, 8 hours, that's a day. They could take every Friday off for a month, and eat through it. But it was just a suggestion.
We have some people that have we have a policy that we have a maximum a minimum of 40 hours they must take, and they haven't done that yet.
Right, we have about 5.
Come here December 1st, so we know one here. Come
In
to town hall.
December, there's a lot of people out.
Okay.
Is there any other
No,
discussion? Oh, sorry.
No, I'll process it, so thank you.
So I checked with Tim, the 150th fund, that there are still some funds in there. Wanted to ask the selectmen what they thought about us purchasing orange and purple lights to put in the trees for Halloween. It's $280 if we order, because there are 14 trees along Main Street. And just wrap them.
Where does that money come from?
The 150th fund,
And who does the work?
well, actually, I would volunteer to do that, and I bet I could get a couple other people that way.
I can drive, I'll come down and help. Okay, you can hold the ladder, right? That was going to be my job, but, okay.
I mean, and then you'll have those. for
Anybody?
The future, and you can do it every year.
Make a motion.
I'm in.
We have to make a motion? I'll make it.
Now, let's go ahead, make a motion.
Make a motion that we take $280 from the 150th fund to purchase orange and purple lights to put on Main Street and the trees for Halloween.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes.
Thank you. So the next item, I was gonna have this discussion with you last week, but John couldn't be with us, so I held off. You had asked for a report on, if you recall, relative to White Rock, relative to the trash containers at Burger King. So I asked the next day, that Thursday, I asked Leanne the next day to give me a report on it. I'm also going to include Honda, that's cement crushing at 96 East Main Street. Just to give you an update, the contractor has agreed to the following procedures. The crushing of all concrete will not commence before 9 a.m. and stop no later than 4 p.m. Water will be used on site for dust mitigation, and less than 150 tons of stone will be crushed, so there's no special permit required.
Permits are generally based on the capacity of the equipment, not necessarily the quantity they do. So if it has a rated capacity over 150 tons an hour, it requires a permit. That's with their resources division.
Okay. I know that Leanne checked.
Okay.
So
Okay.
Where is this?
it's.
Honda bringing in a portable crusher.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, Peter. I'm not necessarily saying that the 150 tons ties to a special permit.
Mhm.
It's just as in parentheses, there are no special permits required. You know what I'm saying? So I'm.
Well, when she says no special permits, I'm not sure what she's referring to, because does she know all the permits that might apply?
I think she did check on that.
Okay.
She did check, and I think it was based on the meeting. White Rock solar arrays. As a result of the concerns raised, I met with the contractor on site to discuss the completion of the project. The meeting confirmed that the installation will be completed by October 4th. Delays in completion were caused by the utilities companies. All conditions of approval will be met by October 30th, including planting buffer on the east side. Letter be submitted to the town of Tilton for decommissioning once it is no longer in use. And the contractor also confirmed that once all construction was complete, the temporary fencing will be removed and the lawn will be mowed. Trash containers at Burger King. So the trash containers and their location are not typically part of a site plan, as they are not permanent structures. Regulations for trash receptacles can be found in the town's litter ordinance. We did ask Leanne to go look for the site plan for Burger King. She and Al found it. There is no, there's nothing on the site plan that requires trash cans. And the site plan is in their office, although I don't know where it is right now, but if anyone wants to look at it, I can have her pull it out.
Are there no other regulations that would stipulate that an outdoor fast food place in this state would have to have a trash can?
So,
Okay, sorry.
No, that's okay. Receptacles for commercial parking lots. And by the way, that Friday morning, I went down to look because I know she said she had seen trash cans and you said you hadn't. So I drove down there. I didn't see any trash cans at Burger King. And as I was driving by, I called Leanne and I said, I don't see any trash cans here. I said, I see trash cans at McDonald's. And she was looking at the wrong place. So she was looking at McDonald's and not Burger King. So, in order to aid in the disposition of litter in the town of Tilton, all owners of commercial or retail property open to the public, which by the nature of the operation could cause a litter problem, including but not limited to grocery stores, carry-out food operations, and shopping centers, are required to locate covered trash cans conveniently throughout the parking lot in quantities listed below. And the number of parking spaces, trash containers required, if there's 1 to 25 parking spaces, they need 1, 26 to 50, they need 2. And I'll hand this out, copy of her, so you can all look at it after. Anyway, she goes on and on how many that are required. Penalty and enforcement, penalties for offenses. Any person who shall violate the provisions of this ordinance shall be guilty of a violation for each day of neglect or refusal to comply after notice and be subject to a fine of not more than $1,000 payable to the town of Tilton Board of Selectmen. Each day such violation is committed or permitted to continue shall constitute a separate offense and shall be fined as such. Falls under enforcement. The enforcement falls under the health officer. The health officer shall be empowered to carry out the provisions of the litter ordinance of the town of Tilton. Any law enforcement officer, constable, or other special constable of the town of Tilton appointed by 3 of the 6 Board of Selectmen is empowered to enforce this chapter. And when I get to it, I did follow up with Catherine because you remember she was the one who was looking into this. But in any event, Leanne says that in an effort to bring some consistency to the issue, she visited most of the restaurants and carry-out food stores and found the following to be true. And again, I'm not going to go through the list, but of the 15 locations viewed on September 25th, and she spent about 4 hours on Friday doing this. Viewed on September 25th, 6 were in compliance and 9 were in violation of the ordinance. This ordinance also applies to retail commercial, which were not part of the site visits. So she didn't do retail commercial. Temporary signs, that was another topic that came up. All temporary signs required permits for zoning ordinance. And I'm not going to go through and read all that. I'm going to hand this out to all of you. But the bottom line is, and I did go around and look at signs too. I mean, there are signs for Alzheimer's Walk. There's signs for, hiring people. Are we going to be consistent? If this is something the board wants to do, I think we could get our DPW to once a week go pick up all signs. Leanne and Al said if that's what you want them to do, they're happy to do it. If you want it on a regular schedule, but I think they're looking for guidance. Is that every sign? Is it, the Winnisquam School? They've got the signs out there. You know what I'm saying? So there's got to be. They need direction.
John?
So my concerns is this was brought up in August for the Burger King. This is, I think, their 3rd or 4th time being notified of this. And that's why, concerned that nothing, was happening and that with the signs, we have an ordinance on changeable letter signs. Those are all now reappearing. We have, there's a computer store down over by the Winnisquam Bridge that now has 2 of them. They're just multiplying and multiplying. Alzheimer's walks and things like that. You know, we're talking about, you know, as I said before, roofing company, all, you know, they're advertising in front of Gentle Dental up on poles. So if it's an ordinance and we have a line and we have people have repeatedly violated, why are we having to meet, spend all this time looking and researching and everything? Why aren't we just enforcing our ordinances?
Well, I think the clarification that she was looking for is it doesn't fall under land use. It falls under our health officer or the law enforcement. And you recall that you actually did speak with Catherine back in August. And I've got the emails from her where she had looked into it and she had said, the selectmen want me to pursue bringing commercial properties into compliance with the littering ordinance, trash can requirements, or do they just want me to bring Burger King into compliance? And my response was, my understanding from last evening's meeting is that the selectmen would first like you to send a letter to Burger King noticing them of their violation, littering and lack of trash cans. Second, if we receive complaints, as we did about Burger King, that you should issue the same notification. So I sent her an email on September 30th. I said the issue of lack of trash cans at Burger King came up last week. Can you advise? She responded, I spoke with the day manager on Thursday, September 18th, who said the cans had been ordered through the corporate office and that they will put them out as soon as they receive them. I told them I would check back with him in 2 weeks, which is tomorrow. I will let you know what was said, and then it will be up to the selectmen to decide if they want to fine Burger King for not complying with the ordinance. So, I mean, Catherine has been since the beginning following up with Burger King. She's been over there, there's communication back and forth. She's been waiting, and I believe I had mentioned that to the board at one point, that she was waiting to hear from corporate on that. So she's been working on it, but then I think it came up.
I guess if somebody has a violation, speaking with the day manager, it should be informed in writing that people are in violation and what the law is. And because, you know, we need to, I'm looking at all ordinances across the town on all of these, that we need to start at least, you know, sending letters and things like that.
She did. She did send a letter.
She sent them a letter.
And tomorrow is the day, right?
And then they would start $1,000
This was
fine.
a while ago.
Okay,
So,
well, we have to pick a date and then start making them come into compliance by finding them if they won't do it of their own accord. Would be my feeling. Because I'm a big believer in enforcing the ordinances, or take them off the books.
right, and you'll see in the list that she provided all people who are on restaurants who are in violation now, and those who are in compliance. And if that's your wish, then I would say that it sounds like we need to ask our health officer to get these folks into compliance.
That doesn't have anything to do with signage. Right?
No, signing, I'm sorry, I thought we were still talking about.
I thought we were talking about trash cans still.
We are. I just wanted to make sure that they were separate issues.
But in terms of the signage, again, you know, DPW, even like I say, Leanne and Al, they, you know, go out and pick them up.
Can I comment about the trash receptacle?
Sure.
I think that, like, we have a list of 9 that were, in violation. And I think that maybe we should target, that's a bad word, send a letter to these businesses that are in violation with a copy of the ordinance stating that effective January 1st or another date that's chosen, that the town of Tilton will begin enforcing the ordinance stricter than it has, given them a chance. This way it's not, it kind of softens all of a sudden, we're enforcing this ordinance that was put in and to do that. And, I believe most site plans say, compliance with town of Tilton ordinances and other regulations or whatever. So to, remind them of that and let them know that and give them a chance to do it, because I know it sounds stupid, but if it's an independent restaurant, some of these trash cans can be fairly expensive. And if they're just making it, I'm not saying, I don't know how all these restaurants are doing, but the industry as a whole is hurting. And, I have noticed now, because there's a lot more restaurants doing takeout and things like that, and people are eating in their cars, and I see it. When I travel, quite a bit of mileage traveling, and I have noticed a huge increase in trash on the side of the road. And that's because they can't go into a restaurant, and it's only drive-through only, so people are gonna throw their trash out. In the town of Walton a couple weeks ago, they did one of these on a Saturday morning. They were doing one of these litter pickups, litter patrols, like local volunteers, and it was down to the New Durham line, and they must have had 25 bags of trash. I was like, holy cow! And you don't see it all summer, but as things start to die and the wind blows around and things get around, there's a McDonald's, on the rotary, but they have trash cans, but half the time you go by them, they're full, because people are just stuffing them full of trash. They take the trash. I've gone to places where they've actually removed some of their outdoor trash because people are taking all their trash and filling their things in one stop. And, that's a little unfair. I get it. They're in public business, but again, just remind people, I think if we do a little softer approach, you might get a little bit more cooperation. And say, send it registered mail, however you have to send it, so that we know that they got a copy of it and to do it. That's my 2 cents.
Anybody else?
I think possibly 30 days is sufficient. I can tell you on Main Street that I constantly, as Art said, take out food stuff. It's been increasing. I pick it up across the street along that, and then the grass and the wetlands over there. And it's constant. It's like, just gotta do the litter patrol.
Well, we have trash receptacles downtown, and we pull them in because of the sidewalk plowing. So someplace like, I don't know what Tilton House has going. I'll use Tilton House, but I don't know. If they take their sidewalk can off or Casamigos or whoever, and they take it, they don't have a can, because we're not gonna let them keep a can on the sidewalk.
Well, I think, that anybody, if there's a problem, they could come in and ask. They also don't have their own parking spaces.
That's true.
A lot. And it's based on parking spaces. But I mean, in particular, Burger King has been just repeatedly told to put them out, and then put them away. And there's, we've been going through this for years, and that's why we came up with this ordinance, is because of that. And it is a litter problem. And I think 30 days, if they send them a letter and have them become compliant in 30 days. And then start issuing a fine if they have a problem, they can come in and talk. But
As long as the notice has said something to the effect, if you'd like to come before the Board of Selectmen to discuss this matter, get in touch with the town administrator and get put on the agenda.
And the other thing is should we be, allowing other people to, so the trash thing is a health officer thing, and it's up to them to enforce it. And the health officer should we be having public works or something to enforce? Or, it says, or should anybody else be enforcing it, or is the health officer able to do it?
If per the RSA, it's the health officer.
Yeah, it said, or whoever the selectman designate.
Is code enforcement able to enforce that ordinance? Or just the health officer?
I gave out, because I thought that it said, I think it was law enforcement or health officer. What I thought.
And, we did some years ago, we cracked down on changeable letter signs, and you are allowed to have them, but you need to file for a permit for it. And I think it's for up to 15 days. But, like I said, they're all reappearing, and it's just kind of looking.
It says here that any law enforcement constable or other special constable of the town Tilton appointed by 3 of the 5, in this case, selectmen, is empowered to enforce this chapter. So we could allow the code enforcement guy to become involved because he is a special constable. I've seen his badge. I'll make a motion then to allow for the code enforcement officer to enforce the provisions of the ordinance
In addition to the health officer.
in addition to the health officer. 900-17. Is there a second?
Second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Again, are we just saying, okay, go out and enforce, or are we giving them a timeline?
We aren't doing anything but approving the code enforcement being a part of the process.
Okay.
At that point, we direct who we want to direct and how we want to direct it.
Okay, but
Because we are the Board of Health.
But you're sending the code enforcement officer,
Mhm.
you're gonna give,
We're not
Jeannie's-
sending anybody.
Jeannie's
anywhere.
gonna let the code enforcement officer know that the Board of Selectmen has directed you to enforce the trash ordinance.
Mhm.
So,
No.
Allowing you.
We're allowing for that person to do it.
okay,
We have yet to have anybody go after anybody, including the
so
health.
it's just gonna be an empty instruction.
And
It's
any-
not an instruction. It would allow for him to be part of the process. The process to be determined.
In any of those health matters, she always sends out a letter anyway.
Yeah,
I just wanna make sure that that he knows that, okay, don't go don't go knocking on doors.
no.
Uh,
The process is yet to be determined. We were discussing the process or when do we send out a notice? We've sent out nothing. You know what I mean? And if at such time as there needs to be enforcement, we would have 2 people, or Catherine would have a backup to help her enforce the ordinance.
Right.
That's my total intention. Peter?
I don't see why we need 2 different tracks going in. You've got one authorized under statute. Let that person do their job. The other one has enough stuff to do on their own. We're gonna keep piling stuff on him. You guys do what you want. I'm a no.
Okay, then. John, you have want to chime in?
Just as assistance to Catherine, or if either one of them is busy, it goes up to the officer, and they can coordinate together.
Okay. If there's any new things to be said, Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Against?
Nay.
Okay. I'm faulty of hearing. Pat, you're an aye. Peter?
Nay.
I'm a yes. Eric?
I'm a no.
John? Motion carries 3-2. It only needs 3 of the selectmen, it says in the motion carries. It says 3 of 6, but we don't have 6.
I guess I missed it. I thought there were 3 that voted against it.
No, only 2.
Okay.
Let the
I
record
voted
show.
yes.
Oh, I thought you.
We have yes, yes, and yes, and we have 2 no's.
Gotcha.
So,
We alternated. Yes, no, yes, no, yes.
okay, so that's where we're at right now, the process to be determined.
I'd like to make a motion that we notify the non-compliant businesses to become compliant in 30 days or contact the selectmen.
I'll second it for the purpose of discussion. Is there
What was
discussion?
the motion?
It was to notify the non-compliant on the trash receptacles within 30 days or contact selectmen.
I have a question.
Eric?
Are we open for discussion? I guess that's not my
Yes,
question.
yes.
Motion to accept.
We needed, and I seconded it, so Eric, you're up.
So if we look at the 1, 2, 3, I don't want to name the business.
Hmm.
So the fourth up from the bottom. So I'm just saying if we're going to be contacting these. So that trash receptacle that they have to put out, does it have to look a certain way? What happens when there's snow removal? That is going to be impeded by the town of Tilton snow removal.
Garbage can could be on their porch. Doesn't have to be on the sidewalk. Just has to have a garbage can available.
Could be in one of their parking spots.
I'm just, but again, this is where we don't have anything established yet. And then if you look at the establishment right above that, where do they have 18 spaces?
Actually, they have no spaces. She's wrong because we own the parking lot,
Well,
not the town.
but now they're saying that they're compliant. They're,
We'll have to,
but they found 2. Don't those 2 belong to the town of Tilton?
perhaps, it might be up on their porch.
Up on the porch, I think.
If it's up on the porch, it belongs to T.
This
If it belongs on the sidewalk,
We
if
gave
it,
them 2.
if it's on the, if it's on the sidewalk, then it belongs to us.
We allowed them 2 spaces.
Okay, well, they got 2 spaces, not 18, certainly. That's just a miscount.
No, that's municipality.
Yeah, we gave them 2 spaces, 2, not 18. That's,
Well, I'm only asking because I'm not seeing other downtown locations and I'm, in that vicinity. But there's one there that, where are they gonna, I guess I'm looking, again, procedure. How is it gonna be enforced? What's it supposed to look like? What happens if I put a bright yellow trash barrel out in downtown and all the other ones that we have are look wrought iron looking?
the process is to be determined.
Well, according to this motion, we're gonna start the ball rolling and we don't have any direction to go.
These places don't have parking. This is
You're up
municipal.
next, Peter. Peter?
So when we send said notices, do they get 2? One from the health office or one from code enforcement to make sure that we cover all our bases?
Thank you, Peter.
Just the office of redundancy.
Is there any more discussion on the motion?
Was this officially on the agenda tonight?
No, it was a carryover.
This is a carryover from August.
From August?
No, from last week.
Okay.
Well, and August as far as the
We're
one
pushing
person.
8 o'clock.
I know, we were ahead
Yeah.
of time for so long and then we get to trash here
Okay,
and
and we're
we
just
lost
writing
all
it
the
out
time.
still. Let's take a vote. Is there any new information pertaining to the motion?
I've got the motion.
The motion is to send out letters to the violators on this list and give them 30 days to come into compliance with the ordinance. That's the motion.
I can't vote on that because that list is incorrect.
Well, then vote no. Vote no. Is there any other, and I don't mean to tell you how to vote. You can vote any way you want. All right, but that would be an option for you.
But we should look into some of the numbers a little more. But people are in violation.
I get the intent, I just can't with that list.
Are you saying with that list, that one that's in error?
I think there's two.
There might be a couple.
Where?
T-Hop, certainly.
Up, the fourth up and the fifth up.
Yeah, the fifth up,
Yeah,
they don't have 18 spaces, so that's wrong right out of the gate.
I got that. What else?
T-Hop.
There you go again.
Don't mention business names.
Let's not mention the name. We keep mentioning it.
It's compliant anyway.
Yeah,
All right.
go after the one.
So is that the only
You
one?
mentioned Burger King all night long, and why are you not mentioning this?
Okay, let's move on.
Is it just-
Because they were in compliance.
Okay, then. All right, take a timer. We have a motion on the floor.
I'm just trying to understand, is that the only wrong number that
The one below it.
okay?
And I don't know any of the other ones that may or may not. Those are only the two that we know of right off the top of our head. And it could be a mistake. Mistakes are made all the time. I make them plenty.
Can you send me a copy when you?
Yes.
We have a
Just for my
motion
records.
and a second on the floor. Is there any other pertinent information?
If anything is wrong on there, like I said, the motion was, or they can contact the selectmen. So if they don't feel that it is right, then it can be discussed. That's why that is added to the motion.
Anybody? Okay, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Okay.
Nay,
The motion fails. If we get a better list, perhaps we can revisit this next week.
This is where we lack history because in making those spaces, and they are municipal spaces, we've granted some of these spaces and then we didn't grant other spaces and we granted them uses of our spaces.
In any case, the motion failed.
Moving right along.
So we're not going to enforce any of trash ordinances now, right?
Is there,
we could have the health officer send out letters saying, you should have X amount. What is your plan to do it? I'm just don't want to come out with, we're going to fine you in 30 days. I'm trying to do it the friendly way, like Eric's been talking.
you'd like to make a motion?
I like to,
No, bottom line is, let's just get it done. Let them do it. Let them get it done.
Do what precisely?
Move on to our next topic, hopefully.
Well, soon, I hope soon.
So I think to what Pat's saying is I'll just have a conversation with our health officer. Give her this list, ask Leanne to go over it with her to correct any mistakes and tell the health officer that it's the board's desire, I think, to send out letters notifying them that they're not in compliance and that they need to come into compliance? Is that what you're asking?
I think that's what John is asking. This issue is not a new issue. This issue was way, way, way before Dari.
That's what made the ordinance. I'm going to make a motion, we eliminate the trash ordinance.
No,
We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Dear God, no.
Well,
I'd like to finish.
Sorry,
tonight.
John, there is no second.
we've been kicking this down for 3 months and nobody's making a decision on whether or not we're going to enforce it or we're going to go. And
I'm
even
missing it, John.
No,
You're
we're sending them an ask.
We just.
When do you start? Ordinance says and at a certain time per day that they are in violation, you're gonna do it.
So the next
3
step
months it
is
has
we,
been.
we put an assistant on. The next step is Jeannie's gonna speak to both of them and they're gonna start enforcing. What else would you like the board to do?
That's what we keep saying. Well, see what happens.
Let's just, a couple weeks, let's just give this a chance to work. If it doesn't, we'll address it.
Jamie, would you make that happen?
Are we gonna update the numbers? Because I'm thinking of all sorts of places I can get takeout in town.
That's
you
what
know.
I'm thinking
Well,
too.
okay, we gotta start with something. And then we can move out and move on.
Just for clarification, when you update the numbers.
Well, I only see a few establishments here that we checked, and there's a lot more that
Right,
still sell.
She addressed that. She said
So-
she didn't check.
No, as long as we are,
She did in 4 hours.
Mhm.
So,
no,
okay,
She went to lunch a lot.
all right. I have one more issue, and then we have non-public. So, and it's a process issue. So when a member of the board needs to recuse themselves from the board, from the table, because there might be a potential conflict of interest, I've been advised by the New Hampshire Municipal Association that if it's non-public, if it's a non-public session and the select board member has recused themselves, that they need to leave the room. They are not an acting board member. They don't have a right to be in the room because they are not an acting board member because they recuse themselves. If it's a public meeting and they recuse themselves, just like any other member of the public, they have a right to be in the room in the audience. So the question came to me, I researched it, and I'm bringing the findings to the board.
Well, thank you very much. I asked the town administrator to research it. I know how we've always done it. I just wanted to make sure that we were absolutely right in doing it the way we have been.
who did we contact?
NHMA.
Oh, that's the group that we can call one lawyer on one day and another lawyer on the next day and get opposite opinions, correct?
And that's a great question, and I brought that forward because it seems that a couple of years ago that a different answer was given, and I brought that forward to the attorney that it was given to. He came back to me and said, it's like anything else, what information you're providing. So in the context of that question back in 2018, there wasn't a definitive or a delineation between public and non-public. So that the answer that was given was based on it being a public meeting, i.e. if you recuse, you can sit yourself you can still be in the room just like a member of the public. This one in 2020 was relative to non-public. And when I went back to their original attorney, the response was, well, that was public, this is non-public. And non-public, they can't.
Is there case law to back that up? Or is that just their opinion?
And ask.
Well, because if there's case law, that more or less settles it. If there isn't, it's still up in the air.
John?
There's something, Kathy or Karen Phillimore was also another attorney, as well as Martha Burns.
Margaret Burns was the one.
Margaret Burns.
In 2018.
And then there was also Kathy Fillmore who wrote something on that. Now, I'm not sure if this involves when I have recused myself or not, but I mean, if I recuse myself, that's my decision. And so I don't have to recuse myself. It's my decision if I can go and be biased or unbiased by it. So I could say, okay, I'm not going to recuse myself and just not say anything. So, and I don't remember when I did recuse myself before, if that was public or not. But- So,
And as far as the issue of recusal, my understanding is that it's up to the individual board member whether to recuse themselves or not. Pat, you had a question?
I don't have a question. I have plenty of statements though. First of all, it really disappoints me after all these years and working with each and every one of you, with the exception of Eric, but although I've worked with him on many committees, to know that you would think that I would do something improper and inappropriate. But this question came out via a selectman, and number one, a selectman cannot go to the town administrator and say, please go to an attorney and ask for a legal opinion. It needs to be vetted through the board, and the board says yay or nay, can we check this out? So you are acting only as yourself during that time and not as a member of the Board of Selectmen, and that's unfortunate. So I feel bad for that. In 2000.
And before you move on to the next thing,
Well,
I think
Ron,
we've
didn't you say-
established
I didn't
that
interrupt you.
selectmen can go to the NHMA and
They
ask
can
legal
go direct
questions.
to the NHMA direct, but they can't go and tell somebody else to go on behalf of them as a selectman to the NHMA. There's a big difference.
I never asked for anybody to go to the
My
NHMA.
understanding,
I asked for
according to a phone
information.
call that I got,
Information.
according to a phone call that I got, that it was challenged by a selectman. And that person and that town administrator was asked by a selectman to go to New Hampshire Municipal Association. So if I'm incorrect in saying that, am I incorrect? That a selectman did not ask you to take this to New Hampshire Municipal Association?
Correct.
So
They did
you were
not
incorrect in saying that to me.
What's that?
Okay, go
What did you
ahead.
say?
So you were incorrect saying that
I
to me?
never said that to you.
Oh, okay. So this is the third time now I'm interrupted, so can I finish what I have to say?
Please do.
Okay. This was challenged in 2018. In 2018, Catherine Dawson wrote a very lengthy letter and to New Hampshire Municipal Association. Not only did she write the letter, I wish you were here to explain it to you, write the letter to Margaret Burns, but she also spoke with Margaret Burns in person and spoke of her in a non-public situation. Very clear, very precise. Personnel evaluations are given in non-public. We don't do them in public situations. So this whole scenario that was presented to Margaret Burns in 2018, on June 29th in 2018, this was all said to her regarding a non-public evaluation. And she went on to give Catherine advice. Then I spoke with her after that, and then she said that, gave us very specific information and said, this is what you do. You recuse yourself, you remove yourself from the table, and you remain silent and you stay in the audience. And that is what I have done once a year when a family member's evaluation comes up. I don't vote on it. I don't comment on it. I don't sign it. I don't sign the PAR. I don't vote on the timeline, on the the budget line. You all know that, except Eric. You all know that kind of behavior. to allude in a public session that I would do anything else but that is absolutely ludicrous. So I took it one step further because I spoke to Jeannie on this and I said, Jeannie, we already have a ruling on this. And I sent her the exact emails on this where Margaret Burns made a ruling, and I'll be glad to forward them to anyone, you that still do not have them. I'll be more
I
than
don't
happy
have
to. Then she forwarded it to Steve Buckley, who made a total different decision based on what Jeannie portrayed was the situation in the event, and got an entirely different answer. I shouldn't say answer, opinion. And that opinion differed from Margaret Burns, and it said in the opinion that I could contact him at any time. Well, I did contact him. And he said the difference was because it was public and non-public. And I said, well, who would ever have an employee evaluation in a public? When we talked with Margaret, I personally talked to her at that time on the phone in 2018. I remember it very, very well. And so does Catherine Dawson, because I've spoken with her many times in the last couple of days. And it was portrayed as a non-public. It was answered in opinion as a non-public at that time. If they want to change their answer now, that's fine. But since then, I have spoken to several lawyers, municipal lawyers, and all said to me, with the exception of one who didn't have an opinion one way or another, particularly Dan Crean, who no longer practices anymore, and you all know Dan Crean. And they said, in no way, shape, or form do you have to leave the room, particularly when there's no switch that says to you that you are an elected official. You recuse yourself because somebody that you know, or you're a family member or somebody that you do not want to talk about this subject for any reason whatsoever. You remove yourself, you take yourself away from the table. You don't automatically switch from selectman to no selectman. You're an elected official. You always remain elected official. You just don't switch it off. And there's no law. There is no RSA. I asked that to Steve Buckley yesterday. Please give me the RSA that you're rendering your opinion on. There isn't, but that is my opinion, and my opinion only. So now we come to a crossroads, and it's up to you folks. Do you base your decision, or do you base your thought process here and now? Where do we go forward from this? Do we go forward in a battle? And do we go forward based on the last 10 years and what we've done and recuse, walk away, not have a comment? Or do we go ahead and spend taxpayers' money and do a battle? One way or the other. We've got to figure this out. So it's really basically up to you folks. You've worked with me, you know me. There is no law, there's an opinion. And if you wrote it tomorrow and asked from a different town in a different way, tomorrow you're going to get a different answer. We've proven that many times with New Hampshire Municipal Association. And, Peter can tell you that one right now. Catherine and I have sat down together and written the same question, sent it in at the same time, in the same computer, and got two different answers from the same lawyer. So now it's up to you. I mean, I don't think last Thursday night, I didn't open my mouth. I didn't even give you eye contact for that matter. I was reading my emails, which I hadn't all day. So I think the rest is up to you. I've listened, I've spoken to lawyers, I've spoken to municipal lawyers, I am prepared for the town to take it forward, however you want to do this.
Apparently you have information I never received. And I based my questions in a vacuum. You have answers. I never saw those answers in 2018. And you have a copy? Well, I have no copy.
Well, let's read.
We'll get the copy.
No, let me just read this out. I think the public, because it's been brought up in public, and I think that we really need to read this. It's prudent that we do this because, I mean, this is in the best interest of the town. I mean, there's a lot of people. It was a meeting that we all well know that I was really blindsided one night that accused me of interacting with it. So.
Well, I don't know how that could happen because you didn't interact.
This is back in 2018. And this was a legal inquiry to the, where's Catherine's? Well, this says just good morning, Catherine. You don't have Catherine's here.
I have the response back.
All right, so it says, good afternoon, Tilton Select Board. Yesterday, I wrote an email response to the question from Selectman Dawson. My understanding was there was another select person was participating in a personal evaluation of her own wife, thus creating a potential conflict of interest situation. My ultimate advice, as I said in my email, that a select person should recuse him or herself from a personnel evaluation of his or her spouse remains the same. However, I spoke with select person Constantino today, who called New Hampshire Legal Services. She conveyed to me that she was the select person in question and that she had never participated in discussions or votes relative to her spouse's personal reviews, which is true. I told Pat that full recusal did not require her to remove herself from the table where the board is seated, but she can certainly stay in the room, i.e. sitting in the audience does not create a conflict of interest. If that protocol is followed, there is no conflict of interest. I can only provide legal advice based on the facts presented to me. I appreciate that the issues related to conflict of interest can be difficult. I hope this email, coupled with yesterday's email, can provide some finality to the board on this, but we're here if you have any further questions.
Did he specifically mention at the beginning of that a non-public session, in non-public session?
So,
And I am not accusing you of anything. You've never once tried to influence.
He referred to evaluations, employee evaluations, which are.
In this case, are definitely non-public.
we've never, ever, in 12 years that I've been a selectman, and Catherine can attest in 19 years, we've never had a public. There is a possibility of having a public meeting with the personnel if they ask you to have it in public. But we have never had a public
Do you
session ever.
Do you have a copy of Catherine's original question?
Original question. Okay.
I read the response.
Good afternoon, Catherine. All right, so
My only concern is that we do legal and above the board. And
I have the
which is not to
answer.
say that you're trying to subvert anything, just I want to do it right.
So this one says, good afternoon, Catherine. I'm following up on a conversation with some guidance on potential conflict of interest where a board selectman is also a spouse of an employee. The issue has to do with the select board member being involved in the personnel evaluation and decision regarding compensation of the employee's spouse. The general rule is that the conflict of interest requiring disqualification will be found when an official has a direct personal or pecuniary financial interest in the outcome. That interest must be immediate, definite, and capable of demonstration, not remote, uncertain, contingent, or speculative. Atherton versus Concord, 109 New Hampshire, 164, 1968. As the court in Atherton explained, the reasons for this rule are obvious. A man cannot serve two masters at the same time. and the public interest must not be jeopardized by the acts of a public official who has personal financial interest, which is or may be in conflict with public interest. Certainly, the personal evaluation and compensation of one's spouse creates both a personal and financial interest. That being said, a stricter standard of fairness is applied in the courts in the case where a board is acting in a judicial as opposed to legislation capacity. A personnel evaluation would not be a judicial, but would be instead legislation. An administrative decision, generally speaking, a court would only invalidate the actions of a board acting in legislation administrative capacity if the board would, with a disqualifying conflict of interest, casting the deciding vote. Michael versus Rochester, 119, New Hampshire 734, 1979. For example, in a case involving a city council decision, the court refused to invalidate the decision despite one's member conflict of interest because no judicial function was involved. Michael versus Rochester, a city councilor paid the city to extend a water line to his property. The councilor then voted for an argument that required future lot purchases connecting to a line to pay the councilor so that he would recoup a portion of his investment. The council voted unanimously in favor of the agreement. The councilor clearly had personal financial interest in the council's action and the conflict of interest, but the remedy was not invalidation of the court council decision. The court said, through a judicial and quasi-judicial act of municipal body may be voided because of conflict of interest. An administrator or legislative act by such a body need not to be invalidated if the conflicting interest did not determine the outcome. In Appeal of Cheney, 130, 589, 1989. The court said legislative action will not be voided because of a conflict of interest unless that vote was the deciding vote. These types of decisions are unfortunate in some ways because they make it appear that it's okay for a board member with a conflict of interest to remain involved because the stakes are high, technically lower than where a judicial type decision is involved. Of course, in above cases, the municipality did incur costs in defending the lawsuit that stemmed from the individual with a conflict of interest. I do also appreciate that the board members wish to perform their duties and often feel strongly that they are able to separate their personal feelings from the official duties. However, my advice in these type of situations ultimately is for the board member to recuse. Of course, no individual can be forced to recuse him or herself. It is incumbent on the individual with the conflict to do so. In addition, sometimes the appearance of impropriety or conflict can be damaging to the public perception of the board, which ultimately can affect the credibility of the board. So good policy also lends itself to a recusal when in doubt. In a case where we had one recently, where there was a non-public, and it was a dispute over a road, if you would, boundaries, parking, and a selectman recused themselves and remained at the table. Last couple of years ago, there was a selectman that also, I believe it was Dan Crean that was here. We had a case involving a police officer, and that one of the selectmen were directly involved in that as well and recused themselves, but stayed in the room, stayed at the table actually. So as long as they didn't entertain and participate in the conversation, there was no.
Just let me say that you've never failed to recuse yourself. Never once heard you speak to the issue. That wasn't my question. You've never once said anything during these sessions, and we've always done it this way. My question was, is that proper? Is that the proper procedure? Based on that question to the town administrator, she then took it to somebody who could answer the question. This is the response we get back. So where do we go from here? I don't know, because we have conflicting things. I'd like to see Catherine's original question, but you're right, he's right, I don't know. Like you said, lawyers have a tendency down there to, depending on the time of day and whether the sun is out, you get a different answer from them, but
So do we want to, based on the knowledge of what this board does and how they present themselves and what we have done in the past with other select people?
if there's no legal reason for you to leave, you wouldn't have to leave.
I'm happy to share with you what
Okay,
I'll send you all the.
please, let's get it all out there. But like I say, I'm in the 10 years I've been around, I've never heard you try to interfere with that process. You've always recused yourself, and that has never been in doubt. At least not in my mind. Anybody else?
No, we're a half hour behind.
Yeah, we are.
We're doing so good. Too.
Democracy can be
Well, we still
timed.
haven't resolved it. Nobody's saying where we're gonna go with this. We still haven't resolved it. Last week, I was abusing the privilege to something with town hall about a bus, doing something about that. A couple of weeks before that, I was accused by Eric about being involved in a decision on a sign contract because I was Patsy's and best friends with supposedly the business owner, although I've never been in her house, so I don't know how I could ever be her friend. But I don't know where this is going, and all of a sudden now I'm being challenged about doing something that I've never really done. So this is out in public, and oh, by the way, it's just about ready for re-election time. So where are we going with this?
I assure you.
So
that
what
was
do you
never
want?
my motive.
What do you want the Board of Selectmen to do? Where do we want to go with the taxpayers now? Where do we want to go with this? I can name the lawyers that I spoke with today.
Can you
And
give me a copy of Catherine's question? Because you didn't seem to
No.
have Catherine's question specifically.
Yeah. Let's,
Because it was, in my mind, it was the issue of,
let me see if it's tied to the thread here, because when I printed, I don't know if I've got
is the selectman still eligible to be in the room if they've recused themselves? It's a question of procedure.
it. Right.
I guess it's a
Go ahead.
question of procedure that you just mentioned, because I don't remember which email you were reading, but I wrote it down. And that when the person recuses themselves, they can sit in the audience. But in a non-public session, there's no audience. So where would they sit? I'm just saying that, I only say it because when I was on planning or zoning, an issue came up because a former employer was before both boards. And my question of recusal came up. And actually, I was held in, illegally, I was taken into a non-public session by a board. I'm not going to say which one. I don't want to, it's long over.
I
But
was actually there.
I was the one in non-public session for questioning. And I'll admit, I had an emotional breakdown. I found out later, because I didn't know any better at the time, that was illegal, but I never could. But that question came up because I didn't know when it was on zoning, the table was over there. I recused myself, I removed myself from the table, and I didn't know if I had to leave the room, but because it was a public hearing with like 80 people there, I was able to sit in the audience, and I just could participate as a resident of the town of Tilton. But I guess the thing that caught me was that you said that be seated in the audience, but there's no, I don't think.
Well, that was an example. She had it in parentheses. It says audience, i.e. you remove
This is the
yourself from
audience. There's
table.
nobody there. It's the audience.
You remove yourself from the table.
But there, in a non-public session, there wouldn't be an audience. I don't believe. I don't know if there's
So
any
they
case.
could be in a non-public situation, sure. You would have evaluations, you would have department heads, whatever. It could be.
And in the example Pat mentioned, that was a non-public and the individual stayed in the room. The parking issue,
Oh, yeah.
well, if you're saying it for what, it's still non-public. So if we recuse ourselves, we have to leave, there's another example we didn't.
Well, and I've heard nothing definitive either way. I have a legal opinion from NHMA and a legal opinion from NHMA.
And a nice vague thing from Christine from NHMA on recusal, but it doesn't get into this part of it. I recuse myself from NHMA, Christine Fillmore.
I found something in there on the NHMA site, a whole article on. There's, yeah.
There's a ton of them there that there's no RSA whatsoever that says that you must leave the room. There's an opinion that says, well, maybe, the reason is
So
maybe they might feel uncomfortable on the subject that you're talking about.
Do NHRSA recusal, Joe. I think that's how I got that link. And reading that, the only one who can make you recuse yourself is a judge.
Exactly.
and only in land use issues.
It might be
I'm
because
totally
I'm
aware
scanning
of
that.
that section of the law.
And land, yeah, it's,
So, all right, we'll take a consensus then. Let's move on. Let's get out of here. Let's do something. I mean, we as a board, it's we, the taxpayers' money, we need to do that. This happens once a year for what, 20 minutes? Where do we go from here? Joe, you're the chair.
Yeah, well, my personal feeling is that based on conflicting, Jeannie, you have something?
Will it be helpful for me to send to all of you what it was I got back from NHMA so you can see that I don't know unless you want to, that you have to make a decision tonight.
Well, that's what I was going to say, is that at this point, I don't see as we need to make a decision necessarily. We continue with the way we've been doing it until we can get all of the information together.
So you're just gonna carry this out?
Yeah.
On me?
I don't have all the
On
information.
me. I haven't slept in 3 days.
Well,
You're just gonna keep on
sorry to hear
carrying
that.
this out.
I don't have Catherine's question.
I will get Catherine's question to you tomorrow.
Okay.
I'll call her
And,
and ask her to send it
I'm
out.
sure we can put this to bed, no doubt. And we're not going to change
It's not
anything.
fair to me.
We're not going to change
Anybody's
anything.
gonna come up every 3 years?
If you're a
You know.
selectman in 3 years, I mean, things happen. I don't know. I don't know. All
What
I
does that
know
mean,
is
Joe?
your
What
integrity.
does that mean that you just said just now?
I
What does that
don't
mean?
know. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. And your integrity is not a question. Legalities in my mind are. a question.
My integrity, I beg your pardon, is in question right now. That's
By
exactly
me.
what's in question.
Not by me.
Well, it's by somebody, whoever got in contact with Jeannie to start this whole zoo. Yes, it is. My integrity is exactly what's in
It's a
question.
matter of legality in my mind.
Dear
I ever-
God, can we get to the non-public?
Can you
I'm gonna be
say
leaving.
that I've done anything wrong? What? Please tell me.
Anybody want to make a motion? I'm willing to entertain
You won't
any,
like mine.
make any motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Well, a
I'll
motion
go.
to adjourn is technically non-debatable.
If you get the second.
Yeah. Is there a second?
The rate we're going, I'm just walking because we're just wasted. I don't know how much time we wasted tonight.
Okay.
Who's that?
There is no second to adjourn. So we're not adjourned. And do you want to make a motion of some sort, Pat?
Do you want me to make a motion that we should just drop this on me? And then so my integrity comes into question next week? It should be one of you that comes, it should be my peers that do this,
And give me a chance.
not me.
Give me a chance to read everything and maybe I'll be the one.
So let it hang over my head for another week.
Well, without the information, I can't vote.
God help you ever being in this situation. I've done absolutely nothing wrong, and you say I do nothing wrong, yet you don't want to act on it. Come on.
So what other information is out there that would,
Jeannie has information that she's received from NHMA. She's got a copy of all of the emails, not just the response from one that we didn't know what the question was. I didn't know what the question was. Me personally, I want to wait for a week. But if there's anybody here that would like to make a motion to act on Pat's concerns, I'm certainly willing to entertain the motion.
personally, I'd like to get the email, the original that was based on. I heard a lot of information that was clearly said by the attorney, that it was an evaluation. The attorney was aware of that. It seems really clear. I don't want any questions on that response. It seemed very clear to me. And if it's just email, and I hate to do it because I know how, and I value integrity too, and I've always watched you, and all of us have always done that. I'd like to just have that, so it's part of the record. And then we won't have to rehash this hopefully ever again, and if it comes up, it will be referred to that meeting, and I hate to put off a week. But I think it would be important to make it very clear, no questions and nothing else.
I love you, Pat. I can't
Don't
without,
even say that in a public meeting. How do you think that my wife feels with me fighting up here for my integrity right now when you've shot it all the hell already? Please tell me that. How do you think she feels at home right now listening to this?
all I can say
Please tell me.
is that.
It's not
your
good enough
integrity-
to have it done and challenged over and over and over again? Come on.
Is there anybody
Keep
that would
digging.
like to make a motion?
I'll give Jeannie the gold shovel. She can keep digging. What the heck?
Okay, there's no motion on the floor.
Thank you, Jeannie. Appreciate it.
So, Jeannie, you're still up?
Bring it on.
Pat, please,
You know,
please?
I just said, bring it on. Let's move on. What the hell, what's wrong with that? Well, you want me to say I love you just like you love me? Well, come on, let's go. It's 8:45. I have to get up at 4:00.
So let's move on.
I'm ready for non-public.
Okay,
Now we're ready for non-public. Why didn't we say that in non-public?
the time being, 8:39 PM. I'd like to make a motion to move into non-public per RSA 91-A, semicolon 3, paragraph 2A, the dismissal, promotion, or compensation of any public employee, or the disciplining of such employee, or the investigation of any charges against him. And RSA 91A, semicolon 3, paragraph 2C, matters which is discussed in public would likely affect adversely the reputation of any person other than a member of this board unless such person requests an open meeting. This exemption shall extend to include any application for assistance or tax abatement or waiver of a fee, fine, or other levy if based on inability to pay or poverty of the applicant. And RSA 91-A, semicolon 3, paragraph 2I. Consideration of legal advice provided by legal counsel, either in writing or orally, to one or more members of the public body, even where legal counsel is not present. We expect to be back into public session at approximately 9 PM. I think that's optimistic, but do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to go into non-public session. is there any discussion?
You know, in the future, it'd be beneficial to know ahead of time what I'm going into non-public for. It's always this blank thing. I always have no clue. It's vague, personnel, this, that, but so it's hard to really base, is it truly non-public?
I agree with you, but I emailed Jeannie ahead of time, so I know.
Oh, okay.
So
Well,
before you vote on that, if you'd like that information, perhaps somebody could clue him in real
Okay.
quick.
Well, no, it's just because otherwise what happens then when you vote to seal, you come out and you say no, because I shouldn't have voted in the first time. I look sort of foolish.
No, I apologize. I thought I had sent an email telling you all what those things were. One, it has to do with the tax deeded property.
Okay.
One has to do with a letter that I gave all of you last week from our attorney regarding
Some things.
some things relative to, I guess, CBA, I could say. One is a follow-up from a meeting you had in non-public with an employee. One is a follow-up from last week where there was an email introduced to the board that I was not aware of, and the board had directed me to have a meeting with those two employees and come back and report. And I plan to just do a brief update on the right to know request. There's really nothing there, just wanted to tell you that. And you also asked me to ask an employee about a merit increase, and I did that. So it's just an update on that. And a complaint from a resident.
Thank you.
Is there
So
other-
if we're doing evaluations next week, can we put the employee that into next week so we can shorten this a little bit and
Well, that's not, just for clarification, it's not an evaluation you're doing on this person.
I think this is just information and discussion relevant to the conversation that we had.
But
Not necessarily a vote of any sort.
certainly could do that next week. Doesn't matter to me.
John?
In non-public, if one of those subjects or something that comes up, we could ask to table it till next week.
attorney-client is not a non-public. It's attorney-client.
What?
It's not a non-public, it's attorney-client.
You mean the one that I just referred to was not a non-public?
It's attorney-client.
It is non-public. I can go down and get I checked it today. Okay, you know what? I have to say, I am trying to do my job and I am constantly disrespected in public. And I'm doing my job. This is not personal, but it feels very personal on the other side. Am I alone in this? Does anyone not else see this, or is it just me?
No, I get it.
I get it.
I understand.
Of course you get it.
Oh, was
Let's,
that person?
okay, now we're just going back and forth.
Yeah, now,
Let us
now,
move,
yeah.
let us move to the next thing. We have a motion on the floor. Is there any other information that is relevant to the motion on the floor? Hearing none, roll call vote. Constantino?
No,
Yes.
Chessman, yes.
Fire, yes.
Scanlon, yes.
Okay,
This conference will now be recorded.
definitely as they pertain to
Reputation?
reputation until the matters are resolved
Second.
or legal.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded.
I understand that. I'm just trying to say, No, that wouldn't fall. Okay, I think we're good.
Okay?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure you covered everything.
Okay.
You have a motion and a second. Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Is there any other business to come? Oh, we got to get back into, oh no, we're in public session. Never mind.
Motion to adjourn?
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Is no discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Did it